What's up, guys? The ALGS offseason is finally over.
Needs to stay alive. No, Melee does it!
Welcome to our new series, the ALGS Rundown. I'm Tiff, and this week we're going to be covering all things year 4 of the ALGS Pro League.
He finds two with the one clips. He's going to make it.
Now, as a reminder, each Pro League region consists of 30 teams, 22 teams invited by ALGS, and 8 teams from the preseason qualifiers. The Pro League regular season prize pool is $1 million divided evenly amongst the 4 regions. Those teams will then battle it out in 2 8-week-long splits, with the top teams from each region then advancing on to the playoffs, with the ultimate goal of making it to the ALGS Championship stage. Now, let's jump into the biggest headlines in the ALGS Pro League. One of the biggest questions this offseason has been, what team will top IGL Sweet join for ALGS Year 4? That anticipation ends with the new era of LG Apex unfolding. With Nathan on the bench, it's been years since this iconic duo has split up. Can Sweet lead his way to the top again alongside Funk and Slayer? Get ready for an exciting chapter as this formidable team steps into the arena. That clears the way for Oversleeper's qualification to Pro League. They're underdogs, but they have great potential. Badri, the 16-year-old M&K prodigy, must be keen to show us what he is capable of. Alongside former Splitgate pros JP and Charmander, this team is an eye-catcher. His Watson returns to competitive. After a short break to recharge his batteries, he's back with Furia, and this time alongside his ride-or-die Keon. Add in Madness to complete the 3, this team has some serious firepower. Furia is taking a risk on an untested 3, but this trio comes pre-installed with more synergy than most teams. XSET made a big move, grabbing roller prodigy Koifel, whose Pro League debut rocketed him to the tops of conversations along roller veterans like Jen Burton, Verhulst, and Effect. If he maintains his solid form, this could result in XSET moving from a solid top 5 worldwide to LAN winners. Dark Zero, a 3-time LAN winning team, isn't resting on their laurels. Despite a successful year 3, they've opted for a big change, bringing in Sykes to replace Zainu. Is this the key to reclaiming their championship form? Moist Esports has made shockwaves in 2 regions by leaving APAC South to follow Dark Zero to NA. They've also picked up Guild, the last free agent from NRG. And we're expecting them to gel seamlessly, but will they stake a claim in NA? Year 3 LAN Dark Horse, the Dojo, are back with the same roster. Timmy, Designful, and N. It was beginner's luck, but others are confident that they're going to make it back to LAN and best their 4th place finish at Champs. How can we talk about the NA region without mentioning TSM? Unarguably the most successful ALGS team of all time. They've made themselves a target early on in Split 1 with the wildcard Meat Lovers. Will this affect their ability to qualify for Split 1 playoffs? Or will they chase off Meat Lovers away from their POIs? There's a power vacuum forming in APAC South following Moist Esports' move to NA. Everyone expects Primus Commanda, formerly Blackhand, to be the top contender, but will they stand their ground or will a new team stamp their authority on the region? Divine has formed a team of 3 APAC veterans. Pricey comes out of retirement alongside Wei and Shady. With tons of experience on the team, they've got the potential to make a real splash in the region. If Primus Commanda can't find their way to the top, then Boogie Borders will be happy to take over. Former Onyx members Raki and Fussy join forces with star controller player Panavi to make a bid for the top spot in the region after spending the last couple of years in Moist Shadow. Time to speculate about the King's downfall. Fnatic is rebuilt around Yuka F, Satsuki, and Laika. Yuka F hands over the macro reins to Laika, and we're all waiting to find out if this is the right move, or is this gonna open up the region for a massive battle to take their shot at the crown. First in line to take that shot will be North Eption. After After some revolving door roster changes, Taida, Reizi, and Yuka Predator want to step up expectations and leave their mark on the global stage. They'll have it all to prove as they set their sights on their former teammate Satsuki and look to dethrone Fnatic and claim the #1 spot for themselves. Crazy Raccoon is back. After heartbreak as Raz got called up for military service, the team did not compete at the Year 3 ALGS Championships. For Year 4, Crazy Raccoon has signed the fan-favorite team Ganbare Otosan, a staple on the LAN stage. Dogma, Juzna, and Zhonghee have an org, and Crazy Raccoon has a team expected to perform. Coming off a hiatus, Matsutasu has returned to Pro League, this time to join alongside Shunmi and Suda Taiken underneath that Reignite banner. Experienced and talented, they will have to get comfortable together to shoot for the top. After all, Matsutasu has a legacy to uphold of finishing top 10 at every LAN he's been to, and it would be a shame to break the streak now. In EMEA, we've got a brand new org, ESG, looking to make a splash in the region by grabbing up Lufka, Light, and Blast alongside Coach Luke. Aftermath Esports have crossed the pond from South America to EMEA. Stelizi, Kirev, and Flash have kept their ALGS dreams alive and will be planning to give the fans in this new region a reason to remember their names. EMEA #1 seed Element 6 has a fresh new look, adding in 2 new talents from the roller pool, Cracked and Slab. Element 6 has been dominant in the EMEA region, but has never been able to swipe that trophy. Swinny will be hoping this new roster gives them the juice to go all the way. Longtime fans of the EMEA ALGS will be stoked to welcome back Bryn. Popular among pros, this hot prospect back in 2022 vanished from the scene. Like a phoenix, he's risen from the ashes and playing alongside Sir Del and Noises on the team The Full English. This trio will want to pick back up where they left off and remind fans why they loved him. Aurora also lean into the Year 4 Phoenix storyline, confirming the return of MNK legend Hardeki, joining the duo of Impulse and Oirein. When you take an unconventional and aggressive playstyle and add in a dash of raw MNK talent, sparks will fly. Get ready for an exciting ride as Shiv and Mandy step into the ALGS fray with 40% worse. Despite challenges like Shiv's injury, Mandy's retirement, and a tense last game in preseason qualifier, the team, including Zerifer, is driven by motivation. With no expectations and everything at stake, they're set to bring an all-out, unstoppable energy to the ALGS Pro League. With all this and more, we're looking forward to the best year of Apex Legends esports ever. Find us on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and be sure to follow us for the start of Year 4 ALGS Pro League on January 20th. See you there.
Yeah, the thermite doing enough damage. He gets the finisher on the head.
Oh my god. No way you're gonna do this, Jen, no way! Hitting 1v1 on the walls, he knows his voice! Gets the opening knock! The CEO! With a hostile takeover! TSM are your champions!
Welcome to year 4 in the ALGS. It's split 1, and it's time to get underway with the best that Battle Royale has to offer in the world. My name is Rainday, and I am so ready after a long off season and a brand new year. Happy New Year, by the way. It's a chance to see stories unfold, maybe new stories that we haven't seen before, and maybe tried and tested stories that have passed on from just normal consideration into a mythos that will not be able to be competed against. Will the likes of TSM raise their trophy again, which is where we left them just a few months ago? Or will we see all the roster changes, all the swaps come to fruition for a new team to make themselves a chance at having glory? And of course, the biggest name in the ALGS. All of that to unfold, and it starts off here with day 1, and that's why we're going to get underway here. Everyone joining us, welcome. Let's get it started. All right, of course, I've got to bring in my duo who's going to be working with me all day long. We had Amia earlier, and now it's a chance to go back to it in North America. Of course, Mark, Onset Hatcher, bringing the play-by-play. Mark, it's North America. This is where the champions reside. We're going to have a whole year to see if that stays the same.
Yeah, it's a team with a target on their back for sure. TSM, of course, are champions, but if you have been living under a rock for the last few months, ever since Champs, where we saw them lift that trophy, so much has gone down with the competition. So many team changes, so many org changes, so much has happened to try and close that gap and make them feel more under pressure than ever. It's going to be an amazing season, and I'm sure this is going to be a day to remember too.
And of course, for those who didn't see the introduction in Amia, alongside Mark, Dan's been holding it down as an amazing color commentator. He's won the Esports Award for color commentary last November. So congratulations right off that. And Dan, again, a fresh start, not only to the ALGS, but to a year for all of us to get this action back.
Yeah, and we know that North America delivers in a very different way to what we saw from Amir earlier as well. So I just can't wait to see what people have got up their sleeves, because scrims have told us a few things, but as we learned in Amir, scrims don't tell us the whole story. But we will start to develop that story starting here today.
Yeah, that's one of the interesting elements about live. Whether it's a show, whether it's a tournament, an event like this, you always see different results than practice. It's just one of those exciting things that makes sure you have to keep your eyes glued to the screen. For those joining us and maybe not familiar with how the ALGS runs, or if you've had a couple of moments in the offseason where now you're trying to get back into the flow, we've got a perfect video to set up how the course of this season will take place and transpire, and ultimately how you'll get to the prize play in the Split 1 playoffs.
The Pro League is comprised of 2 regular season splits. The Split 1 regular season features 4 regions made up of 30 teams, seeded into 3 groups of 10 teams each. Pro League teams will begin by competing in a triple round-robin format, where each group plays a match series against every other group 3 times. After these matches have been completed, the top 20 teams, according to the regular season standings, will compete in the regional finals. At the conclusion of the regional finals, 40 teams, including teams from all 6 ALGS regions, will have qualified for the Split 1 playoffs.
Of course, if you need any more information than that, sometimes it takes a rewatch. Check out the QR code on your screen. Grab your phone, whether it has this cute little Nessie icon behind that's, homemade as well. Again, shout out to Dia and his partner for making this for us in the green room. Go up, use that, and then it'll take you right to the landing page, give you all the information on when our ALGS broadcasts take place, so you never need to miss a beat. Of course, missing a beat could be something that happened over this offseason, fellas. It was a tremendously wide open space. We talked about this idea of a great reset, partially because every team needed to see how they could best compete. And really, they're aiming for first. A lot of these teams have been beneath first for a while, so there really had to be some major changes. But just as an idea, I know we've got a graphic indicating just a little bit of what has transpired. Mark, we'll get into that in just a moment. But before we even do jump in there, I want to lead this to Dan. A few new ways to get some points, Dan, this season?
Yeah, if you've been watching ALGS, you kind of know how the point system works. You get points for where you place, you get points for how many kills you get, and then that's all totaled up for your total score for that series. There are now bonus points that you can achieve. If you get over 50 points or greater over the second place team, you're awarded with an extra bonus point, and you can also get a bonus point for every match you win over 50%. So if you win 4 matches, you get a bonus point. If you win 5 matches, you get 2 bonus points, and probably with 5 match wins, you're probably going to be 50 points over the second team as well, Rain Day. So some bonus points are there available for people to get them, just to keep on trucking and to reward those teams who truly dominate their groups.
I mean, it's just that simple. I mean, 5 match wins, couple of bonus points. I mean, there it is. Split 1 playoffs. You just win that. You win champs. Seems like the season is starting off pretty simple. I teed this off a little early, Mark, but I want to get into it now. The roster changes have been significant. Walk us through. We've got a graph to support this, but walk us through, I mean, just the concept of this great reset and how many teams have made swaps over the course of these last few months.
I mean, this beautiful graphic, shout out to Tanya, by the way, for doing that on Twitter, but it kind of indicates the carnage that's gone down, right? These are our roster changes on our partner teams. There are so many more that have gone down, but they're the big names. They're the ones that are in front of you right now. Something to note, of course, Moist moving over to North America as well to compete, and Guild has joined that lineup. You've got Complexity making big changes. FaZe, who just announced their roster as well. Zera, Tricky, Pandas, and of course, Snipe Down still there holding it down. And then you've got the likes of Dark Zero, massive change for them as well, picking up Sykes over from Xset, who then in turn look at Sentinel's roster and go, hey, you know what? We want to take Koiful away, and that's exactly what they did. There has been so much that's gone down. Didn't even get to mention Furia or DSG. It's crazy. Honestly, you won't see many off seasons that make this many changes at the top, so get ready for a roller coaster.
I mean, I just want to shout out too that one of the talent in R6, Jess Goat, I think she's been nominated as well. She mentioned if I had something like that on my broadcast, I would be so grateful. So Tanya, again, big shout out to you and big shout out to our production team for allowing that visual to make something that's very confusing a lot easier to read in the off season. It is a little bit hazy, and however, I think it leads us back to conversations that sometimes are not. We come into North America with a clear focus on maybe who the top teams are, teams that are absolutely familiar faces, and you cannot mention North America or ALGS without these 3 rosters: TSM, Imperial Howl, Reps, and Verhols. They went back and forth against Dark Zero to see who would be the best last year. Championships sealed the deal in dramatic fashion in September of 2023. What a performance. They are certainly the team to beat, but they've been known to have slumps, whether in the beginning or in the middle of these split ones. So will they start off strong is our question today. Optic Gaming, they finished 2nd place, and notoriously them and NRG could have actually ended the tournament before TSM had that amazing back-to-back wins to seal the deal, but dropped Skittle Cakes and not finally finding the rhythm that they wanted to. Dropped, leaving SSG and finding a real great home in Optic Gaming, but disguised, or should I say 100 Thieves for It's Timmy, maybe both. He's representing dual orgs, one competitively, one for content, alongside Designful and Enemy. A 4th place finish in championships. These guys are real, and it was actually a real good surprise for us to see that they would be joining this guys, because most people didn't think it could happen. In fact, the negotiation tactics were pretty impressive. We have some behind the scene footage of how it all took place.
Nice week. As you may have heard, DSG's got an Apex team. Yep. But I got no players.
You called the right guy. All I do is watch Apex. Albert Lely, 5-time champion, former TSM member, phenomenal player.
That's pretty good.
I would say.
Does he get much viewers on Twitch?
I'm not, I could check. I mean, I don't know if that, okay. Clout's everything. Let me get another one. Former FaZe member, Phony, Clout, FaZe, goes hand in hand. Top 5 at LAN.
Pretty good. How many Twitter followers does he have?
Again, kind of weird. I'm not really
Again, nice way, Clout is everything esports. You don't actually have to be good at the games. You just have to be famous, like Sentinel.
Yeah, you know, I'm starting to see that's here. Zainu, LAN champion as well. It doesn't get much better than this.
Does he post on TikTok? Like, TikTok's the new big thing.
Do you want him posting thirst traps?
Yeah.
I have no idea what he's doing. Clout.
What about how about that Timmy guy? What's he up to?
Timmy's pretty good. But
and he has a lot of Twitter followers.
Tons of Twitter, but he's on 100 views. I don't see how that's gonna work out.
All right. Now, why don't we just ask him? Timmy, you want to join DSG?
Sure. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Naturals. I got the one-liner.
You killed it though.
Me in that chair? Yeah, 50 takes.
No, you're going, bro.
I love it there. You know, Disguise, he drives a hard bargain toast. Make sure you got to have the Twitter followers. It was almost going to be Zainu thirst traps on TikTok. Dan, I'm glad we went a different direction here, but it seems like Timmy and his squad, Dojo, formerly, have found a good spot.
Yeah, definitely. And I like the 100 Thieves have allowed it to happen as well, because it means that we get even more coverage from different organizations joining. DSG, I mean, actually, Disguised Toast, who won an award at the Esports Award as well. Yeah. Great to see new organizations coming into play and making sure they have a solid squad here in Apex. I'm excited to see what they can do, though, because they're one of the few teams that have stuck together throughout all the roster mania, and I'm sure that we're going to see some great stuff.
In fact, let's head over and take a look at what we did with Timmy earlier before the season started. Hear a little bit about him and his thoughts on Disguised.
Hey guys, it's Timmy here. My teammates are Design, Enemy, and our coach is Bronzy. We are on the team Disguise, also known as DSG. It's honestly a great feeling, you know, me, Design, and Enemy, and Bronzy get a org to represent. They're going to do their absolute jobs to really put us out there, and we get to just focus on winning. So I think me and the boys are gonna go crazy this year, and I'm really excited. It's really cool, you know, like I never thought I could be on 2 orgs at once, but you know, 100 Thieves was really kind to let me compete on DSG as a pro player. And you know, there's a lot of back ends, you know, have to meet, but at the end, I do think it's a really cool opportunity, and I'm really excited to be a content creator for 100 Thieves and do my best for them, and also compete on DSG.
Obviously, so much from that story, but Mark, more stories in terms of new contenders here in North America to talk about.
Yeah, certainly some squads to keep your eye on right now. Native Gaming, I want to talk about them because Klein and Mamba, we know them as the duo, but Rambo is back, everyone. The man with the hair and the man who loves to frag. He is back in the ALGS, and he's going to be certainly a player to keep your eyes on. PLP, a team which is made up and IGL by Phony. Frex is going to be joining him, and Zainu, the LAN champion, will be on that squad. Very excited to see what they can do, of course, led by the IGL in Phony. And then you've got, of course, Moist Esports moving over, I mentioned, from ANZ, and they're picking up Guild, who's not too bad of a player himself. Obviously, the ex-NRG man joining the 2 Aussies as they compete in North America for the first time, trying to follow in the footsteps of Dark Zero.
And then from new contenders, we've got our new beginnings, but you could arguably say some of these could be new contenders as well. Dark Zero, how can we not talk about Dark Zero? Carrying on the same path as they had before, picking up another controller player as a replacement, Zero, Jem Burton, and Sykes. I think they are going to be a squad to watch. And then the return of his Watson, Furia. They really pioneered the way of play back in the day when his Watson was at his very best, and I'm excited to see what they can do here in Pro League alongside Madness and Keon. Of course, Madness is an IGL. Impressive to say the least. And then LG, the announcement was finally made. Sweet makes his return alongside Slayer and Funk to put together a very impressive squad. But will it work when they get out of the dropship? I can't wait to see it, Rain Day.
Pretty amazing stuff from, I believe, just Furia. That comeback from his Watson, I'm keeping my eyes on that so much here. But all to prove, this is somebody, and these teams are people that really you need to pay attention to. 2 out of 3 of our EMEA All the Proves actually ended up in the top 10, and I think this is a great sign for teams knowing that they've got to make a strong start. GKS, Sorcerer, Sleepy Panda, Chaotic Much have to show up big today. Zach Mazer on Elevate Gaming, he's had leadership opportunities from Cloud9 and huge rosters. Can he do it with Shubi and Zap this time around? Finally get what he needs to get going there. And Mark, you know, Meat Lovers, they're kind of an enigma, a story of their own.
They certainly are indeed. You talk about all to prove. Tech's been trying to prove himself for so long, and he's got 2 new players alongside him to do exactly that. You've got a man who isn't too unfamiliar with a shotgun, but it's going to be a Nasher swapped out for a Peacekeeper or a Mastiff. For A1's a former Gears of War man there himself. And I think Meat Lovers, understandably, all to prove, very hot contest story, as we know, with a certain 3-lettered name team. We'll have to see how that pans out in the following game days that we have. But today, we're not going to see that. TSM are going to have a home for themselves.
Yeah, very, very interesting. One of the first active 4-man rosters that we've heard about. We'll see if that ends up showing up. Will they change? We have time to figure that out. But of course, today we'll take a look at groups A versus B, and let's just zoom in on who's in each group. For our viewers at home, we've got Group A featuring LG and, of course, TSM. That's in our, I almost said it again, LG Sweet and TSM Imperial Howl going back to back. We know the friendly rivalry there. They will play in Group A whenever you see them around. Group B as well features, like everyone, some star-studded teams, from Dark Zero all the way to Optic Gaming, the newly formed FaZe, Monsoon, and his squad of Complexity. Not a lot of time to overall get things going, he had mentioned earlier in a tweet, but they feel confident that they've been putting in the work this week to make things happen. Group C, they will not debut today. That will be next weekend, but that's if you're waiting to watch It's Timmy, Gilderson, Swaltzy, those big names in Apex. And hey, his Watson and how that works out, that is Group C for you. They will debut next weekend. But Dan, eyes on Group A versus B today. Anything stand out to you before we jump into game?
Certainly the obvious ones, TSM, Optic, is their fine form going to carry on here into another year of ALGS. I want to see what Complexity have to offer. Very excited always to see Monsoon on our screens. LG will have a big question mark above them as well. What can they prove to us here on the first match day? And I'm sure Mark agrees that this could be a chance for Dark Zero to certainly prove what they're made of as well.
Yeah, Dark Zero, very, very dangerous team. Want to give a shout out to Elevate Gaming as well. Been performing very, very well in scrims, and I think keep your eye on them. Even though, you know, there's a few players on that team that you're looking at who may have had some tough times, shall we say, and a little bit of, you know, a swap of rosters, maybe some players and teams and fans not believing in them. Well, they've come together now and they are performing and putting in some results. So I have to see if they can do that on game day when it really matters.
We've seen EMEA. We saw how even that was, despite it being Element 6 winning, but so many teams within that top 2 to 6, so close, could have taken it. North America, I expect a similar thing, but sometimes we do see a few teams stand out from the pack, at least in the early days. But one thing is for sure, this is where our champions have come from this last year. All of our LAN champions have been playing in North America. Will that stay the same? Either way, we know we're going to get some juggernaut gameplay going on here. So without further ado, fellas, let's kick it off. Let's kick year 4 into gear, and our first split, our first day. Mark, Dan, take it away.
Our first taste of North America. What is it going to bring to the table? What are we going to see in front of us, Dan? It is an amazing time to be part of Apex once again. The ALGS is back, everybody. I want to see some W's in the chat for this gameplay, because this is where we start. This is our map rotation. It's A and B in the lobby today. Storm Point kicking us off.
Yeah, some changes since the last time we saw Storm Point in ALGS at Champs. We've got some new POIs. We've even got new tridents on the map. Barometer has a new trident to work with, which is going to be great for any squad dropping or rotating through that zone. But ultimately, we're going to be keeping a keen eye, as always, on contests. Who's going to be fighting who? Which teams are going to be able to get those early fights out of the way? And how will it affect them as things go down? As far as I'm aware, we have potentially 2 contests happening in A versus B at the wall between Casual and Temper, and Northpad between Secret Formula and Eternal. So both of those teams will have to keep an eye on in the early fights.
We certainly will indeed, and there is a Lightning Rod, which has had a few contests going down over the last few months of scrims, but today TSM will call that home. See some of the new POIs as well as we fly our way around Storm Point, right in the center of the map there. Beautiful little POI to call your own if you can get it. And elsewhere, you can see all of this that you can see on your screen right now essentially becomes one POI. You can see why TSM was so happy to fight for it. But match 1 is alive, everybody. The dropship is ready. It's a new season of the Apex Legends Global Series here in North America. Gaskin, take us away.
And dropship path is always very important as well. This one is going to be very far for the likes of teams that are going to be dropping over towards Sonota Cave. Barometer, for example. If you can drop early, loot up fast, it can be very important for your rotation. Speaking of dropping in, Drop-in Gaming, they will be dropping fast and they'll be looting up and they'll be taking the fight.
Here is the contest. 2 shields going to be broken. Stunny doing some really good work with that Rampage. He doesn't get the knock though, and he's only got 7 bullets left, so he's going to have to retreat to one of these bins, and somehow or other, slightly surprising not to see a knock in that situation, Dan, considering the damage that was done.
Yeah, this is a contest I wasn't expecting to happen down at Echo. No one taking Coastal Camp, so maybe it's an attempt to assert dominance here, and then if you do win the fight, you can move on and continue your loot path.
DNO on the other side of this. Purple mag on the car, by the way, which certainly can very, very easily destroy a white shielded player. However, the Peacekeeper going to poke and the Peacekeeper going to hurt. Crossed has to retreat now, and Duplex is going to have to hit the Q to keep him in this fight. But the damage is all on one side at the moment, Dan. You can say DNO not really in this fight.
And this is something we were speaking about in EMEA as well, how elongated these fights can be because of Conduit. We've got the ability just to shield up your team and make it even harder to get a wipe. And at the moment, it's at a standstill, just staring at each other like dogs through glass, waiting to try and attack one another.
And now you're going to see, they see an opportunity because one player has left. So there might be an opportunity just to create a 2v1 scenario. You Dropping Gaming wanted to take it, but weren't quite able to. Now you're looking at the meds and the backpack to see who is going to be able to heal up, because the amount of damage that has been done by Dropping Gaming, you feel like, I've got to run because they just won't have the meds to heal here.
So maybe this fight just comes to an end, and I'm looking at teams that are nearby. You've got Flat over towards Pylon, who could have a look at this one if they wanted, but it doesn't really help their rotation. So this should be an isolated fight that no one else truly benefits from potentially third-partying. However, it does mean that the likes of Flat and PLP rotating from the southern sides, they should have an easier move into the circle, because we're going to be going up north. We're heading up towards the likes of Zeus, Lightning Rod, and the Wall, and you can see there was a few different teams it drops. I mentioned Casual Gaming. They're now FaZe because they've been officially picked up by FaZe. Congratulations to the entire team for that announcement that happened today as well.
One team who's going to be very happy with that zone pull is going to be LG, dropping over at Zeus Station, one of the new POIs. They're going to have great priority to where that zone is going, probably around the eggs or maybe on the little platform just to the side of it. But a little bit of a chase going down here. You can see EEC trying to chase down Ubin, and Ubin is, unfortunately for him, still alive, but looking a little bit, shall we say, weak? Shall we say, desperate to heal?
Well, this is another fight that's just been going on for so long as well on set over towards North Pad. We knew this contest was potentially happening. This is good news for Optic because it means they can loot even longer at Down Beast because this rotation isn't going to be particularly affected by them. But both teams, again, just kind of backing off. Secret Formula getting away from Eternal here, but yeah, they've lost one, but will they be able to get back up will be the real question. Yes, they will.
Interesting contest going down on POIs like this, North Pad. Obviously, it's not like you would say a priority POI for a number of reasons. Tough rotates, not the best of loot pools as well, but the fact that you can test a POI that doesn't have great loot even if you win it, even though you might have a little bit of crafting, kind of it's an interesting one to take, but you can understand maybe they just feel that it's their best chance to get into the game by winning that. Dark Zero though, kind of gone under the radar a little bit, and understandably so. Champs was probably the most disappointing moment of their careers, I would say, certainly for Jen Burton and Zero. Very well documented, did not make the finals, which it was probably the most shocking story to come out of the ALGS champs of last year. It was almost sacrilegious not to see Dark Zero fighting it for that trophy.
Yeah, you got to remember that the only other teams that have been able to get trophies is Dark Zero, aside from TSM. So it was strange them not competing in that final, but that doesn't mean they can't come back with a vengeance here. And Sykes being added to this squad, another roller player who has some incredible achievements and also is going to do a lot of damage, especially under the IGL abilities of Zero, because we know what a massive brain he has. Here is the newly announced FaZe, Snipe Down picking up Pandas and Zero Tricky, and I'm excited to see how they progress this season. Having the organization FaZe behind you is always going to add those like extra little bits of pressure on your shoulders, that's for sure, but something that Snipe Down's very used to.
Yeah, pressure not really a problem for some of these players. They've been there, they've done that. You see Pandas as well, of course, formerly Furia for him. And one thing to keep your eye on here for them is great position, great rotate, very, very quick to get into these eggs, like I mentioned, which is probably where this zone is going to be pulling towards that end game. But you're looking at the efficiency of what they had to give up essentially to get to this position quickly. They got 2 white armors. They barely had any attachments. You see the 301 did not have a sight on it as well. They sacrificed essentially a loop path to try and get into that prio position, and they're going to have to play from there.
Wow, look at this. GKS well aware. And they see and they catch them right on the crafter as well. And GKS they're gonna reap the rewards here of just being that extra little bit patient, and this is another reason why that elongated fight that Dropping Gaming had hurt them, because they would have heard that commotion and they could plan effectively.
One thing I love about that as well is they even get the free battery. It's like the ultimate insult, right? The player who crafted the bat. It's like, not only am I dead, I have to watch them take away my hard work. But, I mean, you got to do what you got to do in these lobbies. We mentioned it earlier. The lack of Seer, the lack of Bloodhound, the lack of scan meta means those plays become viable once more. And if you are rotating, you have to check every single corner because you don't have the legends in the meta at the moment, which are going to do it for you. So you have to keep your eyes on it, and GKS take advantage.
Yep, now they've got to make their long old journey from south to north. They will or should have a comfortable journey up to Command Center, but there is a chance they could meet flat a little bit later. We've also got to keep an eye right on that southwest. Skirt still down towards Cenote and will still be moving in at some point. So GKS are not the last to move in. And of course, Dropping Gaming could get back up to a full 3 as well with 2 retreating. They're going back towards Coastal Camp. We'll have to see if they get the banner. Now, for the actual zone, it's starting to get congested in the north. You've got a few teams that moved in from the Lightning Rod side. Zeus, of course, is going to be high ground positioning for the likes of LG and TSM, who have now taken it as well.
It's just funny, isn't it? You know, TSM stay together, win champs. Sweet on the other side at the start of the season. Obviously, we had a lot of fun with both Hal and Sweet. It's just almost amusing that they're facing off against each other, right? New roster versus the old TSM, and they're looking at each other right now. And the TSM will be gatekept as well by LG, so they have to move through them, unless, of course, they want to evac over the top. But you mentioned a team in zone. Well, this is deep in zone at the moment. Skirt deciding that, hey, we'll let everybody else take their time. We'll let everybody else get inside of that zone. We're going to play it late. We're going to be healing up, and we're going to see if we can force our way in late. Or maybe just take a little bit of a triple to try them.
And Skirt are a team who we may not have mentioned in the pre-show, but I'm very excited for. Albreleli playing some of his best Apex now, even taking me back to TSM Albreleli with how he's been competing. And I'm very excited to see whether they can kind of find a rhythm here in ALGS Year 4. Now, we touched on TSM, we touched on their positioning over towards Zeus, and the fact that they are going to have Lava Siphon, Lightning Rod for free in this game. They're not going to be contested by other teams. That may happen in other groups, and that meant they could make this comfortable rotation over towards Zeus here, and they now hold some pretty good positioning.
They do, but as I mentioned, they are going to be gatekept, so it's going to be a tough move for them, and they're also not in a great position to do damage at the moment, because as that zone starts to close, there might be a couple of teams who are coming from the south up towards them, but if they take that high ground, then they might set themselves up to be, of course, shot by LG or holding that building, which just is between them and the wall at the moment where this zone is going to be pulling. So it's going to be interesting to see how they try and navigate this, because it's not going to be as simple as you would imagine. And speaking of rats, I spot a couple.
I don't think it's physically possible to be closer to one another, whispering sweet nothings in each other's ear, as now TSM are going to make that rotation around and out of zone that you were talking of, but there are teams in this area, so you really need to have a game plan here.
Yeah, they do, and there's going to be multiple teams inside of the buildings. The thing is, though, if they can land and they can reset, there's an opportunity for them to fight for one of these spots, right? We mentioned how FaZe were inside of one of those buildings. PLP, I believe, were inside of one of the buildings as well, and they didn't look too strong when it came to armor, so if TSM can reset here, then they might be able to fight for one of these priority positions, but they've already had to use the Dark Veil on the Catalyst to make sure they could reset. Now they have to be aggressive as the zone starts to push behind them.
Yeah, notably, they're not in zone, so FaZe is probably going to be their target, but you're right, look at the armors. Panda, Zera, both on whites, and now here comes the TSM push, and they'll take the high ground.
They'll take the high ground. You can see there's a Catalyst inside of the building, but they are split at the moment, FaZe. You can see they were trying to dual hold. The Arcstar's going to go down, which should destroy the reinforced door. Rep's taking a little bit of damage himself, but now the push is going to come in. TSM are assaulting this building, and if they can take it, they're in a great spot for the long game.
Send in the Verhost sometimes is the best way to try and achieve gaining any positioning, but they have now successfully found somewhere to call home. But this isn't really a fun position to hold. You can be poked and prodded from the guys who are up top, who can maybe toss nades down below, but perhaps don't have much utility considering what we've seen from their armors as well. TSM really want to try and push this one. They don't want to have to reside with some neighbors.
Yeah, you can see that the idea here is to smoke out and then send in Reps, who's got that digi threat, and now they're going to try and take this fight. A little bit of chip damage being done, but Verholst decides it's not worth committing to that and going down and giving up this game. So now TSM, they've assaulted the building, they're taking the first floor and the second. Let's see what the next move is with a listening with TSM.
Hold on. Q on the drop.
Can you get a Q on the bottom? No more nades. Could someone give me an arc?
Here.
I don't have
any. Nades. My only nade.
Thanks.
They're still up. Top.
They've got to be.
I can smoke check it. I'm a smoke check.
They have to be up there. Yeah.
I'm kicking this door. It's reinforced.
I didn't hit anyone with a smoke. They have to be in there because there's nowhere else for them to go. There's nobody in the nut. No, wait. It's actually someone in the nut in the top floor.
Okay. Can we like queue up and full send this?
Why'd you break this door?
It's there. It was there reinforced.
Okay. Can you reinforce that or something?
I don't think anyone's above us.
Can we queue up here and just send
it? 10-second smoke.
I don't think it's worth it. It doesn't even matter.
Okay.
I'm looking.
You can throw your Q and just check, Evan.
No, there, no, there.
Okay, they're in the other nut, the top floor, across.
Here's someone below us. Pretty sure I heard someone below us. I'm going bottom floor. Evan, you should anchor bottom 4, I think, so you can play.
Outside on the right. Right here.
Absolutely love that listening, because it shows like the process you have to go through, but it also shows without a scan meta, Dan, you're never quite sure if there's someone behind you, if there's someone above you, and you have to be so careful on checking everything as you move into a position.
I just love that you can just throw your Q up and find out, dude. It's just the little things between these guys. There's some damage being put out by Eternal here as they're starting to find people running in from that red. And it's going to be Optic who are taking damage and losing players.
Yeah, Optic not looking good at this point. They should be able to get the finishes pretty comfortably as well. And it's just about not overextending, not giving an LOS, and not throwing away a knock. If you can do that, then you're going to be in a good position. That's exactly what they do. Optic Gaming, who are going to look back, of course, in history at Champs and think what a missed opportunity it was, but they've got a chance to make up for it, but first game does not go their way.
So TSM have successfully found a home, but FaZe also quite rightfully moved away because they recognized there was some aggression below them and they weren't really equipped to take a straight fight. But speaking of fights, Native Gaming, they've lost one. PLP getting aggressive and doing the damage here.
Yeah, PLP, a team I'm pretty excited about this season. I think there's a lot of potential in this lineup, not just fighting-wise, but some of the positions they put themselves in. And this is going to be the tunnel, which kind of forces its way into the wall. A lot of work has to be done to get through here. You can see a lot of teams are already in the vicinity. Native Gaming will be one of the ones to not come out of this victorious, as it looks like PLP and the aggression they're showing is starting to pay off.
Zonyu with the 30-30 and the car in his back pocket, a real threat in the lobby at the moment. And, you know, I'm so glad that Zonyu landed on his feet, landed on a team like this. It was still a surprise for me that Dark Zero made that change, but it was quite right. They felt like they had to after not reaching the goals that they had set for themselves. So we'll have to see how Zonyu does on that new roster and whether he can find himself being a LAN champion once again. Now, round 3 closing, 20 seconds left, so teams are starting to be forced in from the south. Oxygen, Flat, PLP, they're all in that tunnel you were speaking of, and they're all taking damage.
Yeah, you can see everyone who's in your view right now. FaZe, TSM, EA, EC as well. Dropping Gaming eliminated in the meantime. They have to move north. They have to move uphill. And that is where Oblivion are going to be sat at the moment. LG will be able to work their way down a little bit later before everyone else has to rotate. But they do have an opportunity here with Oxygen wrapping through the zone to find themselves some KP first.
Yeah, Oxygen walking into that LG gatekeeping situation that they put themselves in so long ago, holding out anyone that would be arriving from the likes of Lightning and Zeus. And Oxygen is just doing what they can to stay alive at the moment. Ult's going to be thrown out. Black Hole will go down, but it's Aiden against the world.
This is very, very bad. Aiden, you're a great player. But unfortunately, this is going to be the end of the game for Oxygen. Sweet's going to swing out on this one and surely just finish off this damage, you would imagine. Although it's going to be very, very careful here, Sweet. And careful he is.
Yeah, if there's one player you don't really want to take in a 1v1 fight, it is Aiden the Destroyer. You know what he can do. We've seen him in all sorts of scenarios. Now, this is the kind of cave situation we were talking about earlier as well. GKS will be approaching as the last squad from this southern side, and they should be able to clean up the pieces. PLP will go down, so will Secret Formula. 12 squads remain, and now the southern side is owned by GKS temporarily, but there is more players on the horizon. Skirt are arriving.
Skirt here, Skirt looking to do damage. Look at shots coming in from Albarelli as well with the Vault, the M&K show, and it still gets it done in 2024. Scurry trying to back it up, and a couple of smokes are going to go down as well. Arkstar's trying to follow up. Only 16 seconds until that zone closes, and Albarelli is on his back. This fight is going back and forth at the moment. There's no clear victor as Scurry now tries to move in to finish off some of the damage being done. GKS eliminated, and it's Skirt who will stay alive.
Skirt who arrived just on time, and now they will have the entirety of this southern side, but they have to move up through this cave, and again it's going to be LG who are going to be waiting there, potentially gatekeeping them. So there's plenty of teams trying to force themselves into zone right now, one of them being Dark Zero having a scrap.
Dark Zero going to swing, and Dark Zero going to take down Temper. Great shots coming in from Zero, and Sykes alongside Jim Burton is terrifying enough, and if they're being directed in a way that Zero has shown he can, Dark Zero are going to be back and a force this season for sure. And I think out of all the teams, probably the one with the biggest chip on their back, as FaZe, they start to get pushed once again, and Zeratricky will go down. FaZe will fall. Pandas has managed to escape for a few seconds though, and it was EA who made that push.
Yeah, EA make the push onto FaZe, but TSM have escaped all the meanwhile, and FaZe will now fall in 9th position. 8 squads remain. Now we'll also see Ape Gang approaching EA here, that they're getting shot in the back by Dark Zero. So all these Western teams trying to scuffle with one another. All the meanwhile, TSM have escaped and have found positioning.
TSM just managed to get ahead of the traffic here. 8 Gan eliminated. You can also see Elevate have gone down. So 6 squads now remaining. And we have Oblivion, Dark Zero, Complexity, LG, Skirt, and TSM who are involved in our final fights.
Yeah, so TSM are just holding this northwest side. Oblivion in a quite comfortable spot at the moment in the far northern tip. Everyone else is on the southern side is going to have to push uphill here. Complexity down to a 2, so they're not in the best spot, but they have spotted out another squad. As now it's just going to be Monsoon on his own and trying to take on the world, which we've seen him do some crazy things before.
We certainly have. Should be able to reset here. Nobody else is really thinking about pushing this because TSM and Dark Zero are so close to each other. And Verhos, he gets a horrible surprise, and now you're going to have to rely on reps to come in and clean up this damage. 2 players overlooked this, and Dark Zero just ratted away and managed to get 2 kills themselves. Reps has to clutch now, and clutches for TSM. Dark Zero eliminated, but now the 3P comes in. TSM eliminated, and it's Complexity who started all that kerfuffle who ended it.
Yeah, TSM and Dark Zero going at it. That's exactly what we want to see, and I'm sure what we're going to see plenty of this season. But Complexity will be delighted because that frees up their spot. It also allows them to push themselves into the top 4. So now Complexity have to approach from the west. LG and Skirt still need to come uphill, though. It's Oblivion in prime position at the moment to look down and rain hell upon everyone who is going to be arriving next to them.
2 of the I would say the journeyman of the ALGS in Monsoon and Lou looking to make it happen as a duo as LG make their move. A lot of questions about this roster, and only questions that can be answered after a few weeks of gameplay, after a few lands maybe for these 3 players. Has Sweet made the right decision? Are these the 2 players to push LG and Sweet Dreams back to success? We'll have to find out, but in game number 1 down, they're in a fantastic position.
Well, LG just need to be careful. Oblivion, if they get eyes on, which they do, and now Oblivion join the likes of Skirt and absolutely shred through LG. The Dark Veil goes down to try and keep them alive, but Sweet's just taken too much damage. Skirt are also losing players, and it's still Oblivion on top. But Complexity as a 2 still have an opportunity here, Mark.
LG eliminated, and now you can see Skirt down to 1 player. Skirt is going to pop that back, but he will be done and dusted. And now we have a 2v3, I believe, to see if Complexity can pull something out of the bag here. It's Lou and Monsoon against Oblivion, and Oblivion should be able to get this done. The damage is there. They've held the God spot, and now they have the number 1 spot as well. Just clean up the damage, boys, and you can call yourself champions.
Oblivion make sure that they send everyone else into an Oblivion there. They had that high ground, they had the positioning, and it worked so effectively. And I love that they pushed on to LG. They could have allowed LG to reside there and shot with them and picked up KP, but they knew that that was the scariest 3v3 they would have to take. They had the opportunity to take down as many teams as they could and kind of take down as many players as they could, and they put themselves in the best position to win the game.
Yeah, very strong position, of course, they had for the majority of that game. It's a very difficult zone to try and access and think about winning if you're not the team who's there early, unless you want to take that fight. But as we know, that's a risk in itself. Some very notable teams inside of those final moments there, Dan, and a lot of teams who had good prio to that zone as well. No surprise to see some of the names that we did. Dark Zero had a really smart rotate, though, into that zone. You thought for a few seconds that maybe they could eke out a few more placement points, but they did have the KP to go alongside it, and you would expect them to be up there at the end.
Yeah, I think there was a few teams who thought maybe they could have got a little bit further, but then suddenly a fight started occurring. We had a few teams inting, perhaps because they realized they were in a poor position on the map, because everyone fighting uphill, right? You don't want to be in that final circle, walking uphill and just getting shot aimlessly by whoever has eyes on you. So you try and make a play, you try and send it and take a position off the team, but great circle to watch. A lot of action-packed situations for us to get stuck in there, excuse me.
Yeah, it certainly was a fun one to watch, and good to see how teams navigated from that southern side up to try and fight their way into the north. The one thing about that hill is you do have some rock formations to allow you to kind of bunker down a little bit, but we saw it from TSM, right? They thought that they could overextend, look over a team and a fight that was going down in the distance, didn't realize that Dark Zero were there just around that corner, and their game, which they probably thought were just looking for a few extra KP before we continue our rotate towards zone, ends up being ended because of the fight they had to take.
Yeah, and then we saw just at the end, I mean, even though TSM may have cleaned up that damage, there's always another team. There's always a potential for another team to be ratting away, and it was Complexity as a 2, just surviving long enough. And a second place finish for a team at one point were down to 1 in that final 5. I think they'll be very happy about it.
Yeah, very good performance from Complexity, but it's Oblivion, probably the one name who we didn't talk about in the pre-show, understandably so, with all due respect, that come out on top and pretty much make us talk about them, make a name for themselves. We'll take a look at the results after the break, but it is time for us to jump away for a few moments before match number 2.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the ALGS. Game 2 upon us in just a moment. Rain Day, Gaskin on the mic for this one. However, let's talk a little bit, rehash what happened in Game 1, Dan. We have some time. It wasn't necessarily what we expected. LG was in the mix. Even TSM was in the mix. Dark Zero as well. They ended up cannibalizing each other. And, you know, the win doesn't always go towards some of the bigger expected names, but maybe the most deserving, for sure, in terms of playing that final circle.
Yeah, I think that when you get a circle like that is so heavily northern based, you have to tip your hat to the teams who dropped on the southern side and where they were able to finish. And Oblivion dropping at Cascade Falls, I mean, credit to them. They were able to rotate in a way where they found themselves right on that northern tip above everyone in the end. And I think they'll be delighted with where they were able to position themselves. There'll be a few teams, I think, a little bit frustrated with their Game 1 performance, but sometimes it is just ironing out the kinks a little bit in your first match. And then you see what goes wrong and just making sure you correct it for match number 2.
Yeah, Blink, Arcology, Akimbo, all winners in our first game. Sometimes points, though, don't necessarily go that way. We're going to have to see how they did in terms of kills. And obviously their placement will give them 12, but we'll have our standings ready in just a moment. We're still waiting on that. Big differences that you've seen so far in EMEA. I mean, we were kind of questioning. We saw some Bloodhounds in EMEA. We saw in terms of pacing as well, way more content to, rush at teams, take advantages in scrims. When you get into this pro league environment, things slow down a little bit. It's kind of like things get a little colder. People put their jackets on. They move a little slower, a little more cautious, not just wasting energy unless they know it's going to be a guaranteed result turned back to them. So, Dan, any noticing of the pace changes or anything different from our first games in EMEA?
Not seeing as much conduits, that's for sure. Plenty of Horizon and Bang, almost the entire lobby throwing themselves on Horizon and Bang because we know how important both those legends are. And a slight bit more of aggression, I would say, here in North America. People are pushing fights a lot quicker. We saw in EMEA, if a team felt they were down in the fight, even if they hadn't lost a player, they were kind of backing off. They were trying to make a different rotation, which then forced them into another team. Whereas a lot of these NA squads seem to be committed to their rotations, saying, all right, look, this is where we're going. We either die on this hill or not. And it makes for some very interesting viewing because we're getting some really good skirmishes.
Well, we should have match results coming up in just a moment from our last match. You're right on all those things, Dan. I mean, sometimes you have a different adoption of the meta at different stages of the season. The start of the season, clearly, it's going to be back and forth for many, many teams. Oblivion, though, they start on the 4th. 16 total points, 4 kills, 12 points. Complexity right behind them in second with a kill, and that'll give them 10 points overall. Skirt, 12 points, 5 kills. 3 placement points. LG and TSM right behind. Good showings from them, and even Dark Zero, only 1 point separated from TSM. Pretty interesting as well with GKS. I want to just focus on our top 10 performers here, Dan. What stands out to you? I mean, so far, this is kind of what I expected in terms of big names performing right out the gate.
Yeah, I think that a lot of Apex is down to your IGL and who knows where to be positioning yourselves when you've got these circles and making the best of a bad situation at time with your rotations and where that circle pulls away. And you look at that top 10 and some of the biggest and best IGLs that we have in Apex Legends, but that doesn't mean they're the only ones that are doing the work. You have to rely on your fraggers in the team. That's why we're seeing such a big influx of controller players being picked up by teams who want that one player to be able to get them out of a sticky situation. Your Verhos, for example, your Dynus, teams that can have players just thrown into the mix to deal that damage and force those rotations that your IGL is trying to make. And the top 10 really does show that from that match number 1.
Zainu, a great story as we follow Dark Zero throughout this season and throughout today. Something to talk about as well. Leaving that squad, Sykes coming in, replacing him. There's a lot of conversation and speculation around what that moment meant for them. If you were in the building at Champs and you were there before and after Finals Day, you saw 2 different versions of Zero. And after Finals Day, maybe a version I hadn't seen. So upset at that result. Obviously, hoping Sykes and them can get the job done so far. So far, pretty decent result in Game 1. Storm Point will be where we head to Game 2, and Game 3, we'll switch it up to World's Edge as per usual for our final 3 games of the 6. But I want to talk more about Storm Point. You could see the difference in height, Dan. One of the things in Season 19 Ignite that the developers intentionally did was try to bring in some of the space and limit those moments where high ground made as big of a difference. We know it's still a part of the map, but there were some new additions changed and added to Storm Point, and that's kind of changed a little bit of the flow and given players some landing options. So kind of walk me through, what has been this most significant change for you from Storm Point that we've seen added in Season 19?
I think that it was something that happened during EMEA. It was some of these, not just the POIs, but extra little bits and bobs in the geometry added where you can kind of take a little bit of respite when you're making your rotation. Somewhere that you can land there where you're not just forced into a fight and forced to be in the open as much. And you're right, height is still everything, and rotating from south to north is still difficult, but that's why we're seeing so many horizons here to try and negate that ever so slightly. And the fact the overall map size was just reduced a little bit just to try and speed things up every now and then. We saw that loot pools were changed, certainly in both the southern and northern sides. We saw different loot pool changes. I think ultimately north teams still come out on top with what changed, but it has made things a little bit better for those teams who are rotating from the southern side. Certainly coastal areas have been really a focus point. I mean, we saw some fights happening in North Pad and a contest happening at North Pad here in NA. That's because it's such a good area to drop for your rotations, because it gives you so much flexibility to where you want to move, but you're also able to play edge there. So I'm excited to see how things develop as we move on, whether certain teams will feel like certain POIs are even stronger now, but for me, it's still about those northern sides.
I always find it so interesting having a chance. We've developed a relationship in our team with the developers and some of the map designers. We had a chance to have them out to championships, and we're doing more of those calls. But just in my experience, how maps are adjusted, and they have very intricate knowledge of where fights take place at almost every single turn, kind of like a heat map, higher heat signatures, higher fights. And they did do some very specific work on some of those hard rotations in Storm Point to make things more defensible. The Forbidden Zone, a great example of that. If you go over into the Season 19 patch notes, you can actually see buildings constructed so that teams, even though they are rotating through what was a dangerous area, now with none of the prowlers that would have bothered you in there, and even if you do get caught in a fight, you have more ways to make a stand and not lose your ground and be caught out left hanging in that type of situation. So in overall, I think improving, I think player feedback and gameplay, but also I think for fans at home and learning this map, a lot that you could take from in terms of, hey, you know what? I have been dying a lot in the Forbidden Zone beforehand. I realize that maybe that is a different way that I want to approach some of these matches. A lot of these things mirror, you know, the games that viewers at home can play and some of the things that they can learn from picking up pro play as well, Dan. So always good to get that information. Take a break. We are getting this lobby loaded up again as well, which is why we are having a little bit of a chat here. But it's always good to take some time, Dan. I guess this also opens up some of the meta conversation. I had kind of hinted at it earlier on. We've seen a little bit of the conduits, but to me, when you look at Conduit, when you look at Horizon, when you look at Bangalore, I mean, all of these legends have had an impact this season. Who in your eyes have been maybe the most important legend, or maybe the most fundamental legend that we might be seeing over the course of these next few weeks?
I think it's situational. I think the biggest difference, of course, has been a new edition of Conduit and how that's changed early game fights, how it's changed late game fights at time with not only her zoning ability, but also being able to shield your team at the right time to really get yourself over the line and maybe have that surprise factor against certain squads where they're chasing you, they think they've got you down to one shot, and then suddenly you're essentially full shields again, and you can just turn on them and wipe them in that fight. But ultimately, it's got to be Bangalore and Horizon as the two staples, especially on Storm Point. The smokes to be able to cross have always been so important on Storm Point, with there being little coverage at times, and then Horizon to negate some of that high ground that you have to try and go up against other teams. But then we're starting to see other inclusions. I mean, we know that Cattle is still so important as well to be able to get that Dark Veil down to help you with rotations. We saw a lot of Watson going down in EMEA. Less Watson here today, that has to be said. Maybe we'll see more on World's Edge for North America, but all these different legends have so many different ways of trying to approach the game, and I think that's what I love, is we see teams playstyle sometimes just by legend composition, but by adding new legends who do different abilities, it always shakes things up a little bit, and Conduit's done just that, because not only does it elongate the fights, which makes it harder for some of these teams that are contesting, but also the teams who are near those contests can now benefit from it, because either they choose to just move around those teams and have an easier rotate, or they can third party and then benefit from that as well.
10 seconds, that makes all the difference. You know, we saw even in EMEA, Thermite that just delayed the entrance into fighting someone ended up hurting a rotation of Orglis and Hungry, and they ended up losing a couple members that made it very difficult to ultimately come in first place. It was only a few points at the end of the day. You know, a character that got some changes as well that is very good at adjusting the way the landscape is played is Catalyst. She had some changes in this recent patch that were intended to bring her back in line. It doesn't seem like it's had much of an impact in terms of taking her away from the meta, but Dan, I think it's good to see just that there's some parity that the developers are continuing to eye on to make sure that no one character ever has too much of a day in the spotlight, kind of like we've seen over past years with Seers and Gibraltars and things like that have really dominated metas for years.
And Catalyst. We had a time where Catalyst was almost at a 90% pick rate at one point, especially the fact that they've now kind of changed the throw range. I mean, decrease that by 50% is massive.
It's huge.
Able to kind of throw that goo out and just really grief teams who are trying to arrive. Instead, she's a far more kind of passive legend at times, but still very, very important. Now, we are live, Rende. We're getting into the next game.
Yeah, baby.
Everyone has sorted things out, and we're into the dropship.
All right, always fun to take advantage of the time where, you know, they're spending some quality time getting to know each other, talk about things as competitors often do when they're not competing in the dropship. And now, as they fall from the sky and land in their designated areas that they've worked out beforehand, it's all business, baby. We'll see if there's another amazing performance from Oblivion back-to-backs. That would be a surprise. We've seen it before in North American days where an unsuspecting team not only wins once, but twice. We'll see if they've just got the rhythm. Another early engagement from Drop-In Gaming, though. Jayon, Crook, and Stunny. Stunny with the Massive and the Conduit. Already that damage taken away, but it will slowly add 60 shield health over time. So as you can see, Stunny has worked it back in. And so it's essentially still a white shield. Not too much lost, not too much gained here from Drop-In.
And I think this contest says a lot about Devastated Coast and Coastal Camp from these teams, that they are happier to contest here at Echo rather than playing either of those POIs, which are currently free. This is just asserting dominance in the early stages here in Pro League, I think. Saying, look, we've been doing it in scrims, but now let's make sure we win these in match one, in week one, so then we can start to solidify this as our drop spot. Let's make them blink first and then retreat to a arguably worse POI.
Do you think that this is a mistake in some ways that can only be done when you have the casuality of scrims as your reference point? Because I don't know, if you lose 2 of these in a row, you are not looking forward to the third one. It's not worth it if there are 2 POIs to the left and the right of you, even with worse loot, to just get 0 points across an entire map set in a day like this. We'll have to wait and see. And maybe at the end of the day, they'll just delay each other and kind of 50-50 this as best they can. It doesn't really help either team, Dan, but that seems to be at least the way things have gone for now as we transition over to another part of the map. A huge fight still engaging. We've got Zeratricky as well, the new FaZe squad. Snipe Down has fallen down. Pander's still alive with the Conduit Q, and that's going to be a revive for FaZe, and Temper will go down as our first team eliminated in game 2.
A little bit of bullets onto the death box as well, just to remind them of who took that one. But, I mean, answer to your question, contests are a really difficult one. They always seem like a bad idea, but you've also got to remember that because we're in round robin, essentially, where you play every group,
right?
If you can keep the same POI, it's always going to benefit you across those match days. But if you're changing back and forth, it could hurt you, as we speak of another contest that's happening over towards Northpad. It's Eternal going down at the moment. Only 2 players that are alive, but Carter trying to get this res off.
So valuable to have the Conduit Q already ticking up. Did not have to hit 2 shield cells, which would have taken a ton of time. Could have obviously gone for the heal, decided not to, and it's going to play around the knockdown shields. The Horizon, Gravity Lift, not going to do a lot, but I'll tell you what, Carter's not missing any of those PK shots, and that's simply what determined this fight.
So well played by Carter as well. The knockdown shield being faced as high up as possible and then just crouching underneath it, letting the other player use their bullets, wait for that reload, and then you re-engage with that PK, which can hit hard. And it is going to be Eternal who win their battle at Northpad. So we've got 3 contests happening on the map at Storm Point, but as I said, it could benefit you in the long run with a contest. It always looks silly when it's happening, but maybe as they go into another group, that POI will be theirs. And when you think about LAN, if you can take out that team, the POI could be yours for the rest of competition. But there's a long way to get before we get there, and speaking of a long way, Eternal are going to have to traverse almost the entire map as we're going down towards the southern side, kind of between Barometer and Station at the moment. A little bit of Pylon in there as well, but you can see where the clutter is gathering as everyone trying to find themselves a position.
It's a little bit of a toss up into the air as to what makes a better transition into the late game here. Finding a building that everyone is continuously trying to pressure, or taking your time. TSM electing to take time, rotating on the southern side with a Trident. As we saw a glimpse of in the map, they may run into complexity. Meanwhile, in the center of zone, playing the opposite style is Optic Gaming, holding it down. They've got the squad to do so. Catalyst will still be fine with their passive, being able to barricade those doors, causing it to take 4 kicks instead of 2 traditionally, and also with the 2 piercing spikes she'll be able to deploy. Dropped in Skittle Cakes, and specifically Skittle, really one of the best callers of where the zone will end. He prides himself on this, has ever since we've seen him enter into this league. And so if I was somebody who's betting, I'd say they have a pretty decent idea of where this is going to go.
And I mean, you compare this to previous seasons, we have 8 teams who are outside of the circle right now. Remember how zone heavy ALGS was for a short while? There is definitely teams who prefer playing Edge now, and in scrims, arguably, Edge has had a little bit more success at times. So that's why teams are going to be a little bit more comfortable at moving in late, circle moving a little bit faster, just moving in with it and picking up on teams who are kind of stuck in a sandwich at times, and then slowly moving your way up, taking position after position. And if you are a good team fighting squad, you can take positions off of other squads as well. So there are going to be teams who are more than happy to play Edge, and their compositions usually will show that as well. But we're seeing a lot of Bangalore, Horizon, Catalyst. That seems to be the most popular composition here in North America.
It's like 2 different types of students, right? You've got the genius who doesn't have to study and somehow aces the test every single time. To me, that looks like a TSM. You never know what they're going to do, but somehow they find a way to come out on top. And then you've got kind of the valedictorian type, the ones who do all the research, they do all the prep, they're always first and ready to take it, and probably first to finish as well. And to me, that's more of the Optic style. Tried, true, consistent. We know what we're going to get from them, and it's usually something very, very successful. 2 different styles, 2 different outcomes potentially here as this game continues. The zone about to close in with round 1, 20 seconds away. FaZe still making their way through. This new squad of Zeratricky and Panders joining Snipe Down on the FaZe roster, getting rid of Phony and Frex. It's an interesting bet, I think, for Snipe Down. I apologize for continuing to use that. I think I'm just caught up in my vernacular, but I would say it's an interesting choice too for Snipe Down to trust Zeratricky and Panders in this new role, and to say this is the team that we're going to choose as our style for this year. And I think there's a lot of fans rooting for them that it works out for Snipe this time around.
Yeah, there was a lot of questions about who would end up on that FaZe roster. I know there was even talk about Sweet going there at one point, but if you watch Sweet streams, he would have told you why he's not on that FaZe roster. I'll leave you to find that for yourself. But LG is where Sweet ended up, and you could see for a temporary time there, LG are going to be playing that gatekeeping style once more. But over towards Barometer, teams are just trying to do what they can to stay alive. DNO, who were part of that early contest that we were watching down towards Echo, have been able to find some room to play here on the southern side.
That's a good sign. Can they make it through the smokes? Yes, they will. No problem there. Top of Barometer, Bursty. Dan Mantic just going to do the best they can to ward off any attempt at establishing a position with another team nearby them. Knowing full well probably not going to get it down there, but again, showing force, showing presence, and possibly getting some collateral KP if it ends up being something like an opportunity for another team nearby. As we switch over to TSM, the story undoubtedly in North America, the team to win 2 out of 3 last year at LAN, and of course the final one, the biggest one, the championships. What an epic run, 3 in a row, and you just had to be there, Dan. They're looking to compete at the same level, or of course, if you look at Imperial Hal, better this year. And with the same squad returning, that's going to be something that a lot of people expect.
So TSM are still going to be moving through, happy to just craft here at Pylon, and you know, I'm a little bit worried about some of these northern squads because they're moving very slow down towards choke points where teams are waiting for them. Likes of Complexity, the likes of LG are poised to try and pick up some KP. And it is going to be a tricky situation, and this is one of the downsides of rotating so late, is you can be focused by some of these squads who have already taken a home, and this is where the evac tower can certainly benefit you if you are one of those teams. But it's Eternal at the moment who are going to be arriving, and it's going to be LG waiting for them here, but they are shielded up and they are ready.
Sometimes you can only be so ready. As this fight coming in from the high ground as well, Eternal. I love this area, by the way. One of the newest areas to be added to Storm Point. Really fun fight. Very good hot drops. Great engagements. A lot of ways to play it. Low ground, high ground, inside those buildings. So far, though, just going to pass each other. Sweet, Slayer, Funk. Sweet, obviously, with his leadership, knows when it's time to take a fight, when it is time to move on and find something better. Eternal feel the same way. And with Carter's heroics earlier on, Dan, they probably don't want to push it. They're happy to be alive here.
17 squads still remaining, and that's probably why you don't want to push, because there is going to be another team most likely around the corner waiting to take advantage of any damage that has been done. It's all starting to get pretty sticky now in any location you find yourself in. LG, interestingly, rotated out of their area, and they've gone further north to try and take a different approach into this next zone. They didn't feel comfortable where they were because they were quite vulnerable to their backside, so instead they're going to be moving for a different spot.
Zach Mazer. It's been, I mean, this he is one of those players that truly just has always been a part of the NA scene, whether it's been the highs and the lows. I mean, from getting to LAN, getting ready to go ahead and play with Cloud9 and catching COVID at the start of that event, to the numerous roster swaps. Now with Shubi and Zap, maybe a resurgence here. Obviously, a fight win in this one would bode very well for the confidence, and it looks like it could be going that way. Crook in trouble. Horizon, Black Hole up on top. There is a down to Zach, though, so it's going to be up to his teammates, Shubi and Zap, to try to finish this off. Did Zach get enough for them? As we're on the wide, we do see Droppin' Gaming eliminated Zach. The perfect entry there opens the door for Shubi and Zap, quite literally, and they get the downs.
And that was a nervy time for them, for sure. And it seems like every fight has such importance at the moment, because if you even take too much damage, there's always the possibility that some other team's just going to dive on you. With how many teams there are, and speaking of diving on each other, look how many teams reside here. Optic, Complexity, all trying to stay alive alongside one another. And Complexity have already lost one, but they were able to stay and get second place as a 2 before. Monsoon does a lot of damage, but takes plenty as well. And Complexity have got to be careful here.
One of the best in the business. It's up to Kimchi. And it's not going to be done. Dropped. Skittle Cakes knocked. They don't chase the fight comes to them, and they handle it. As you would expect, professionals in business. Class act. Dropped will now pick up Knox. No gold shields or anything to help make that easier, so they'll just have to use the resources inside the building, but they should have a few armor swaps, at least 2 blues, in case there's anything immediate. Medkits will stabilize. Round 3 about to close, Dan. Things are starting to get testy. We are running into that time of the game where there's just not enough room for all these teams to coexist. And this rotation is going to be a tight one.
I mean, over half the lobby is outside of this next circle, and they're all going to have to start inching their way in, but they're going to be exposed to the other teams who are nearby. DNO actually hold a good position on the southwest, and Optic are going to have to push in ever so slightly. They're going to be greeted, though, by the likes of Dark Zero, the likes of Oblivion, who are just slightly north than them. And this is the rotation I was talking about earlier. LG still on the northern side of this circle, still making their way around, and still avoiding fights.
Very interesting. I mean, they have really chosen to take this different route, not just for that immediate interaction where we saw them pass by Carter and squad, but you're right, just to take a different approach. They've got the evac tower. They can go over height. LG curious if they're going to try to go southwest or southeast. Now that they have to, southwest leads them into Eternal and Skirt, and that is where they're going to go. They're going to land right above this squad. You might see them in the screen actually flying down above, and they're going to land now. So Eternal have another team to worry about. They actually pass Oblivion, and Eternal just trying to fight for their life, doing it the old-fashioned way and walking, while Dark Zero found a little bit of space in that zone. They should be okay for now, but they are on everyone's radar.
LG threading the needle, by the way, have found themselves almost center zone at the moment, really picking their time perfectly. You wait for the commotion to happen, and when it does, you can fly through the air, sometimes unnoticed. Optic eliminated, GKS also eliminated, Eternal down to a 2, but at least able to put down some good damage as a squad at the moment, just to make themselves big. But there are plenty of teams in the area, which could prove to be difficult for them when they do make their rotation from this northern side. It's Dark Zero who are close. Elsewhere, look at all the teams here on the southern side.
Yeah.
LG, Ape, FaZe, Flat, they're all here fighting.
Yeah, Panders and Zerturkey again gonna have to do work. Snipe down is down already. In fact, he cannot be picked up this time, has to deliver to the banner, to the beacon. And so it just may not be enough for them to sustain fully. They want to get the KP. That's going to be one, could be a second. And now they're going to get the res. This was chaos, and you can see it continuing. LG a part of that as well. And they're moving in just at the wrong time for FaZe. On the other side of your map, we're not watching it yet, but just to keep an eye, TSM, Elevate, and Oxygen Esports are about to have to do the very same thing on the other side. But right now, LG, they're the star of the show. Let's listen in and see how they handle it.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was saying. Batting. I'm holding for you. I'm probably most likely going to literally hit the fucking can. Can I make it? Can I make it? Yes, you can make it. Okay. We're safe on this wall right now. We're safe on this wall. We have full control of this little hill right here, guys. We probably are just gonna play close side island, okay? On my yellow. Yes. We're probably gonna play. We're gonna walk in super late. We're gonna wall one direction. Play the other side of the wall. Shoot behind us. Shoot these fuckers behind. They're all gonna come down bottom door and pre-arcing in front of them. Come right now. 40. Crack. 60 flash. 60 flash. 60 flash. One. He's literally one. So I think we play for these kills. I do. Just keep walking. We're gonna go to cannon. On the cannon, close. On our cannon. We just play the wall. They died. Go cannon. Wall left. Get to the cannon and wall left. Get to the cannon and wall left. Get to the wall left. Yep. Cut the walk off. Wall. No, batting. Alright, that's actually not bad. Wall's fine. On the left side. On the left side. It's a solo, I'm pretty sure. There's no one here. Just show, I'm nading this. I'm closing the gap. Closing the gap. There's a team behind them. Play the right. Get to the right. Get to the right. Bro. Cat cracked. From 50, it's a 4 different team. Very left foot. They're hard fighting. Yeah, comms. Just give me comms. Let me know what you see, okay? Let me know if you see knocks.
They ran into Oblivion in both senses of the word. Sweet's the only one alive. Arcology Akimbo holding down the central space. Dark Zero and LG, the other two teams there. DSM has made their way to the southern side, though, Dan, too. And they have found a little bit of space on the outskirts, but it is tight in the bushes. And you can say, who has your eye on maybe the best spot here?
TSM certainly in a good spot, but lack of coverage. I mean, you look at this final circle, by the way, so much open area as Dark Zero also able to take out Oblivion. Dark Zero going to be approaching from the west. You've got Oxygen, who have a little bit of room to play with on the northern side, and then TSM on the southern. Those are the three teams that want to keep an eye on. LG just a rat. Sweet's done very well of making the best of a bad situation, by the way. That entire rotation that LG made was an incredible decision from them, but unfortunately just not able to get going in the fight and surprised by one of the squads on the rock. Elevate could annoy Oxygen here, and they will start to approach the fight, but they have got a down onto Zep.
Oh, Prowler in the hands of Shubi. That is going to start singing quite a way. The gravity from the black hole is pulling them inside, so Shubi's going to get rid of that. Sweet sees maybe there's an opportunity to get behind this team, and whenever the chaos happens, either pick off a little bit of it like a parasite or just stay unnoticed in the shadows. Sweet coming in as well as a solo. Shubi picks him off, and that is incredible awareness from Shubi. Maybe just shooting at anything that moves right now and trying to get this Phoenix kid off. Dan, top 5, can he do it? This would be massive if Shubi can get Elevate up, especially as the zone looks to be closing in on them.
I mean, I also love it from Sweet as well, by the way, taking advantage of teams looking at each other, and he said, actually, maybe I can get involved, but he will eventually fall. Shubi gets that kill, so at least some KP added. Elevate out. We're down to the 3 teams I had mentioned. Dark Zero are approaching Oxygen, but it's TSM who now hold center zone here. And if Dark Zero and Oxygen do damage to one another, this could be prime time for TSM as now they start to flood in.
They battled last year for the trophies. Right now, they're battling for Storm Point. It's Dark Zero 3v3 against TSM. Zero hits his shots this time around. The first one to go down, though, as Verholst finds it. Big E comes up clutch yet again, but will Sykes be the difference? Oh my goodness, it is Sykes. He needs the last bullet. No, it's TSM who will take the win. And I believe that just started our split off with some fireworks.
TSM versus Dark Zero, a tale as old as time, but it's TSM who come out on top in that final 3v3. They did have the advantage coming into the fight when Dark Zero had taken a little bit of damage, but the Dark Veil allowed Dark Zero to at least reset ever so slightly. But a great fight. I mean, the initial damage by Zero, I thought that maybe they had the lead in the fight, but Verhost managing to turn on them, do the damage, take down Zero before he fell was very impressive indeed. And TSM back on top, and now we have our teams who are in first and second place. Dark Zero just ahead of TSM in the overall standings, may I add, but a big win for TSM.
Well, Dark Zero made, I think, a much bigger showing of their mid game there and their early late game, because they had several fights that went their favor. They got a lot of extra KP there, and they kind of demanded the zone's attention for quite a while. So other teams really forced the fight themselves. No one was trying to push them within that center spot of the zone. But once it pulled a little bit where they knew they had to move, I think TSM were super smart to just keep that. And there's a little bit of luck to that too, Dan. I mean, easily you could have seen Dark Zero turn their attention towards where TSM were, shoot through the smoke, know there's a team there, but it just ended up being all the fighting happening near the Dragon Ball on the left side was too attractive for them. And I think they thought easy KP. If we win that as a 3, we have great zone position for the final fight wherever that team is. And ultimately it ended up being the right decision, because even though they didn't win, they got the most points overall here. 21, TSM with the actual victory, and maybe the moral victory, or the emotional victory against DC. But Oxygen Esports, Elevate Gaming, and LG round out your top 5 with a shout out to Oblivion, who again have a pretty solid game too.
Yeah, I think if you were to go back and watch the rotations of TSM, Dark Zero, and LG, all very interesting in their own way, but all brilliant IGLs showing why they have, the achievements under their belt that we've been able to see across the years, because there were some very interesting decisions made, but also ones that were very important to keep their team alive at the right time. And then a final 3v3 like that, I mean, we'd love to see those engagements happening time and time again when you get straight 3v3s. Sure, Dark Zero taking a little bit of damage, but they still did have an opportunity in that final engagement. As for other squads, plenty of points picked up by the top 10, but there were also the ones who struggled in the early game, whether it was down to losing an early contest or just getting peeled off by other squads holding their rotation. The bottom 10 looks this way.
One of the interesting elements of a BR, and especially this type of format, is you could take some losses in a way that feel like, wow, we didn't get the win, but when you look at the points, you look at the overall value, Dark Zero has to keep the mentality that we had a great game there, even though they lost not only the team that they were fighting for in terms of LAN championships last year, but the team that is, I think, their spiritual rival here in terms of winning the entire thing this year again. And so, yes, that might be an ego blow, but still, you got the job done. Head focused on where you're going, Dan. And in terms of average placements, in terms of kills, and specifically damage, Dark Zero edging out the tally on that.
Yeah, and you can see this is the comparison of their match 1 rather than match 2, and it shows how similar their match days have been. Match 1 was a situation where they both kind of came 5th and 6th, and then match 2 was a scenario where they end up in 1st and 2nd, and that's why there's only a point to split them at the moment. Two teams who are very closely contested, but it shows that Dark Zero, with this new change, they are up there and they are competing well with TSM. Let's go to a break, everyone.
Welcome back, everybody. The ALGS is starting to harp here in North America, and surprise, surprise, a win in the bag already inside the first 2 games for TSM. But that story is going to be one we tell all season, Dan. Dark Zero going up against TSM in that final fight. It's Dark Zero who come out of the game with more points, but of course that championship banner, and of course I would say maybe a moral victory in the final 3v3 fight certainly went to TSM.
And also, you know, there's always a chance of bonus points if you can get victories on the board. Remember, there could be 1 extra point if we see TSM get 4 victories today. Will we see it? It's unlikely. Very, very often we don't see 4 victories for a squad. But these are the series results from the first 2 matches. Dark Zero lead the way with 30 points. TSM just 1 behind them on 29. So it's very closely contested at the top 2. But after that, Oblivion still featuring in the top 3 on 24. But then it's all to play for from there below, Mark. Anyone can jump into the top 10, and all it takes is 1 good game.
It does indeed. A little bit of a surprise. Of course, we're only 2 games in. See Optic Gaming struggling a little bit. It was a pretty rough zone for them to get into game number 1. That one was maybe a little bit more accessible, but still some ground to be traveled for them. So they'll be hoping something a little bit closer to home. FaZe with some decent points on the board as well. But I think it's just synonymous of the ALGS, right? Especially in North America, that we see Dark Zero and TSM taking that fight. And by the way, we have the mini-map. We see the pre-game lobby. Let me tell you, there's a little bit of back and forth. And I've got to give a shout out to Zainu, because he was saying that Sykes would have won that previously, and you know, we all know the story there. This is what's happened though, of course. TSM with the win in game number 2, Oblivion with the win in game number 1, and now we head into our final map here on Storm Point before we change over to World's Edge.
So the last chance for teams to show maybe their performance on their better map. We do have some teams that are slightly better on Storm Point than World's Edge, certainly from scrim statistics anyway, but we won't really talk about true stats until we start to get into the thick of it with match play, because it's going to be very different with people taking a lot less risks. But we have our contest that we are still seeing, and it's FaZe versus Temper up at the wall.
Yeah, and it's going to be 1-1 at the moment as far as knocks have gone down at the start. Zero Tricky's on his back. Pandas and Snipe down. Still alive, though, and taking the high ground. But can they deny this Reg? You can see Zero Tricky's taking damage. And Temper have got the Q as well from the Conduit, so they're going to be able to get some shields. And FaZe, you have to say, maybe on the back foot a little bit here. Allowing that Res to come in is something you just can't afford to do if you are contesting a POI.
Spade's very low on health at the moment. Conduit Q is available, though, for Cloaked. And they all dive out. There comes the Q, but great damage. There is Eric Rona at his very best.
It's the bait, though. It's the bait. They send 1 player out to fly across. There was 1 player still on height, and that is what makes the difference. It is brilliant coming in from FaZe. There's still 1 player who's trying to have a look at this, though, and it's Secret Formula, who have actually come into third party the contest.
Yeah, Secret Formula, who have avoided the contest that was happening that they were involved in over towards Northpad, and they've relocated to try and third party another contest that's going down. That's so frustrating for FaZe after making such a good play that you were talking about, all for it to be wiped away by Secret Formula here, who have changed their drop.
I mean, you're completely right in what you say. I mean, Pandas is probably thinking right now, really? Really? We just made such a good play on contest. We just really earned our right to loot up and get into this game and work our way towards end zone, and instead we're thinking about just surviving for now. Pandas does have a little bit of double time on his side with the Bangalore, but you can see that he's being chased and chased hard. They want to get this kill. They want FaZe out the lobby, and Pandas is probably thinking, hey, can I just have a minute to myself? There's no way you didn't see him.
I just thought I wanted to be quiet for him there. I didn't even want to let out a breath as he hoped that they would walk by. Now back down towards Echo, where Atheno again facing this fight against Drop-In Gaming, and Drop-In able to do some damage with the Mozambique.
I love the Mozambique on contest, by the way. I just feel like it's one of those guns, if you can find it, you pick it up because it does so much damage. And Drop-In Gaming look like they've had, I would say, certainly the better side of this contest in our first 3 games here on Storm Point. They seem to just be constantly outputting damage, and you can see it from the shields as well. Mostly of the time they're coming out of that contest with blues, and that usually is a pretty good indication. But again, they have to be careful of any third parties arriving. Here is your map, though. Now the, shall we say, the early fisticuffs is done and dusted and everybody is on the map. This is where we're going to be going. And it's looking pretty central, maybe down towards Barometer again.
Also, as much as it's frustrating for FaZe, but you've got to give your hat off, or take your hat off to Secret Formula. They were losing the battle at Northpad, so they dropped just slightly east, and it allowed them to loot up in the building and then join the fight that was happening at the wall. It was a well-strategized plan, albeit an annoying one for FaZe. Now, Circle, we're going to be heading west over towards the areas of Milton Station. Native are going to be dead center to that as we take a little look on Complexity and their rotation.
Yeah, Complexity, who had a very good game number 1, of course, a little bit of a quiet game number 2, but you can't win them all. And we get our first look at the Buster Sword. By the way, the greatest heirloom ever. I don't care what anyone says. I'm the biggest Final Fantasy VII stan you will ever find. And yeah, the Buster Sword is great. It should do 700 damage. Oh, I want it in comp.
Uh-oh, Dark Zero. That's a lot of damage that they've taken.
That was 700 damage.
Even a Buster Sword won't save you there, yeah. But they've been able to at least get out of the Trident.
Combined materia. Heal all. Cure 2 all. Anyway, enough of my nerdiness. Native Gaming. They're the ones doing the damage. Can they clean it up, though? And will Dark Zero, who are in first place at the moment, be able to survive?
That's a frustrating one for them as well. And they're going to have to move off as a 2. But of course, they do have the conduit available, so they can craft those banners, but it's about getting to a crafter, and it's about being able to get the res off. It's not an easy thing to do with so many squads making their move. Very different when you're playing in ranked, and teams will go down a lot earlier, and you're able to just get those resurrections off a lot more comfortably. Now, Dropping Gaming, after having that early contest, they are going to be moving very quickly, or as quick as possible, away from PLP, who are now looking to see if they can pick up any of the stragglers, knowing that that contest had happened.
Going to hit the evac here. It looks like they want to be really aggressive on this, and that's exactly what they are going to do. They are chasing this down. They are running it down. And you mentioned how in your rank games, certain things don't happen. Well, this does happen in your rank games. If you're a 3-stacking pro teams, you find a team, you evac on them, and you cause them problems.
Yeah, definitely. And just try and take advantage of what's presented in front of you, really. If you can pick up extra KP somewhere, and if you can grief a team ever so slightly on your rotation, then go for it, as long as you have a backup plan and it's not going to affect your own rotation too much.
Well, Dropping Gaming, they've survived for now. They've managed to reset and they've managed to heal. Beast of the Hunt being popped here as well, but they have given up the high ground for a few moments, and the longer that this fight goes on, as we always know, it's a bigger chance for a third party to come, but there's nobody in the vicinity at the moment. And I tell you what, PLP, if you want an example of a team looking like they're confident to take a fight, this is it. They are chasing them. They are running it down. They want these KP.
I mean, they should be confident with a team like this, right? This is a fighting squad through and through, and they are going to be more than happy in any 3v3 engagement. The amount of damage output that this squad offers is incredible, but they just can't quite get enough damage to really put on a full charge at the moment. You can see how desperate they are to try and take ground, though, and try and get closer so they can initiate this fight, because they know elongated fights could hurt them here.
This is the equivalent of like going outside of a nightclub and there's that one guy who's trying to fight everyone, and everyone's like, dude, just leave it. You know what I mean? Just leave it.
Let him go.
Yeah, PLP, they're the guys who are just throwing hands at everyone. But this is a fight that's going to go on for quite some time, and the zone has decided, hey, can we just move away? Like, follow me, guys. And that's what they have to do. Dropping Gaming survive for now, but now the problem is if they want to take this fight, they're going to have to take zone damage on their way towards where PLP are going to be. Elsewhere, we look at Oxygen Esports, who have been very quiet so far. They're taking on TSM, and it's not going well for them.
That's one way to put it. Oxygen Esports eliminated, 16 squads remain, and TSM will be able to hold this area, but there are other squads shooting them from a distance here, but I don't think anyone's able to close that gap for now. 2 minutes until the zone closes, so TSM don't have to move as fast as perhaps they thought they would have if that fight had gone on for too long, but they need a game plan to move from this position.
It's interesting, I saw Verholst's game attack there was in all caps, and I misread it as TSM Van Verholst, and I thought he'd become like a Dutch striker, you know what I mean? Like one of those old school Dutch strikers, but instead, it's just, it's Evan, and I misread it.
Or it's like he's been knighted or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe he has. Who knows? Or maybe his name's Evan, as we know it is. Dropping Gaming, still alive, by the way, in zone. Dark Zero, interestingly, as the two are moving towards Coastal Camp, right at the bottom of your screen, probably thinking about looking for that respawn, trying to get a teammate Jem Burton back into the game, and they might be caught off guard here and put in a little situation. Turn and run, boys. Turn and run.
You run into the one Bloodhound team. That's all. You're always just slapping your thigh at that one, saying of all teams to run into, it's someone running a blooming Bloodhound. And again, the Trident is going to mean they're taking a lot of damage here as Dark Zero just do what they can to try and survive. Sykes says, you know what, screw it, let's just keep going.
who's driving here because I want them to have a breathalyzer. They are all over the place, but they get the job done. They survive for now, but what are their meds looking like? Because you would have thought they would have played for the economy of being able to get that res, maybe crafting a few med kits over down on the southern side of Coastal Camp and then getting back into the game. But now they're in zone, and now they're probably thinking, hey, it's plan B. We might have to play this one out as a duo.
So Flat are in a pretty good spot at the moment as well. They can hold down this position for quite some time, and having the rock behind you just means that you have that like extra little bit of security that you're not going to necessarily get pushed from that angle. They just have to be careful of the northern side. And they could certainly grief a few teams that are arriving late, but speaking of arriving late, sneaky.
Oh dear. This is not going to go well for someone. However, they don't get that initial knock, but now it has to be a full send coming in here from LG. That is a brilliant ult, but it gets destroyed immediately. And now the damage isn't done, and Funk has to back up. A Slayer, importantly, vitally for LG, got that first knock, and the second will follow.
Big nades from LG there, bouncing off of the black hole and making sure the nades go in afterwards. So even if the team destroys the black hole, they would have been a little bit stationary putting those shots out onto the black hole, so they'll still be vulnerable to those grenades, and LG will be able to survive. Darkveil has to go down just to give them the extra little bit of cover. They clean up the rest of the kills, but are they going to be able to survive here? Because there are still teams who are doing damage from a distance. LG just need to reset.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a rough spot though, because you can see they're being shot from Pylon, they're being, it's shot from Ceto Station, they're being shot from the teams who are inside a mill at the moment, Optic Gaming and Elevate, and they kind of, when that Darkveil goes, they have to make a decision. They have to make a play. Will they slide down and try and play underneath the building in front of them, or do they just try and find a rock to play behind that denies those LOSs? Dark Zero's story continues though. Jim Burton is still just a banner.
Just a banner.
He's more than just a banner, Jen.
He's more than just a
mean.
banner, but it's a pretty scary banner to be holding if you can get hold of it and bring it back into the map, I tell you that for sure. But it's going to be a difficult journey for them, as PLP now having a little scuffle outside of Jurassic Park. Monsoon's also got a knock in the kill feed, so teams now starting to be forced together as this zone is closing, and there are still about 4 squads outside of this circle, so this kill feed's about to be lit up ever so slightly.
Yes, it's PLP, Skirt, and GKS all in the vicinity of each other. It's one of those three-way fights that you don't want to be the first team to take a knock. You want to just try and play a corner, output damage, force one team into the other, and that's what GKS are trying to do here in this corner. Sorcerer with that scout has almost got the perfect weapon to do so. Unless you go up against the 30-30.
Damage. Yeah, going up against the 30-30 is never fun. It really can chunk you down. But at least they've got smokes just to stay alive. And they're a little bit worried, I think, about teams arriving from the east side. So that's why they're playing this one very slow. Plenty of teams still in this lobby that can cause you an issue as the zone continues to pull west, which is even worse news, really, for these teams at Jurassic who are going to have to move as far possible across the map to go there.
This fight is continuing to go down, and now you're going to see with a minute or so left before the zone is a problem. The push is going to come in. You peek, I teach. Very, very simple for Chaotic. He gets taken down by the R9 of Phony.
Now they're trying to find the rest of the squad. Behind the box will be player number 2, but good crossfire that's happening at the moment just to try and cover the angles, but not good enough to help the teammate. And PLP is still healthy, still well, and will get the knocks and the finishes onto those players. So PLP doing very well just to time that push accordingly and make sure they take advantage of one player being slightly out of position.
GKS with one alive. Sleepy Panda is trying to find a place to maybe just reset and maybe think about ratting, but I've been impressed by PLP, I have to say, with their fighting. You just see that natural kind of baiting and switching, and a lot of that comes from communication, right? Not only is it about hitting the shots, it's about preserving your shields in those fights, taking a little bit of damage but outputting more than you take, and then switching with that teammate in those 3v3 scenarios allows you to do so. But Awaken is just taking down Phony, and now the plan has to change. The zone is moving in, and PLP recognize they have to move here.
Yeah, Skirt came in for the third party, catching PLP whilst they were kind of still looting after that fight, and now they might not even be able to take this evac tower because another team going to be in front of them here, and you know how vulnerable you are when you are moving up that balloon, so Zain, you happen to drop off, and PLP now in a sticky situation.
Thinking about crossing maybe. Frex is still alive, but only for a few seconds. The zone is going to take him down as well as the bullets coming in, and Skirt will win that fight, but now they have to rotate in behind where we saw Zainu trying to put that evac tower down. Dark Zero is still alive, by the way, and Jem Burton is no longer a banner. He's back on the field and causing some problems.
Yeah, a lot of problems as Dark Zero are trying to just force Oblivion off of this spot at the moment, but remember, the solo of GKS is arriving behind Dark Zero, so they just have to be aware of that, and make sure that the solo doesn't ruin their day, but they have Digi-Threat to work with, and of course, Zero on the bang means he can coordinate where those smokes are going to go and where the pushes are going to be. I do like an IGL being on bang, by the way. It does allow for certain plays to be made that are called, as Dark Zero will spot out the last member of Oblivion, and then they quickly turn around and find that solo rat that I was talking about from GKS, a secret formula also full.
I mean, it's amazing stuff from Dark Zero, making sure they clear this side of zone. They still got some work to do, though, as they try and creep their way in. But I think the most important thing for DZ here is they got Gen back in the game and somehow escaped from a situation where you thought they were going to get run down as they rotated into zone. And we do have a listening with Dark Zero. Let's see how they try and plan this next move.
I have 2 cells, that's it. Yeah, I have Kello.
I dropped a fuck ton. Drop more.
Sykes has it.
Shield cell here.
I have 16 cells here. Drop me 4.
Drop me. Yeah.
You need more than that?
I have
6. 57, 50. Okay,
I'm killing you.
Yeah, it's kind of scary. You don't have Kello, no?
I have Kello. I can do it. I can do it. I can angle and we just fight him.
Maybe we can do a switch. Maybe we can do a switch.
We
have to wall it.
We just fucking run this team over.
Yep, let's get him, boys. Alright, Digi, I'm gonna smoke the end.
I don't have to do.
There's a bit of a gap. You gotta go into my smoke.
Arc side.
Get left side first, so you safe from teams. They might have run. Lead there?
No, cannon.
We do have to go again.
No, we'll remember.
Whoa. Get nice.
Golden off. There's all triple off 6. Get all this stuff, please.
Yeah, I'm getting it. I got one of them.
No, we don't have enough.
I just got fucked. I can pop my bat now.
You gotta come left on me.
I have control.
Well, plan 1 of the rotate was pretty good. They forced the team away, but you heard Zero say that's essentially part 1. We still have to do this again. Dark Zero with a low barrel might have been blessed with some ult cells, but can they get the wall back in time?
Yeah, there's a lot of stages to a rotation. You might have got the initial phase done, but then you start after thinking about phase 2 and how you're then going to lead the charge and lead the rest of the team. Now, LG, who had a very interesting rotation in the previous game, have also found themselves in a pretty good spot here on the northeastern side. They do have to move into the zone, but they have cleared the majority of their backs. Depending on what happens in the fight between TSM and Eternal, which is going down here.
Well, it's going to be Reps who gets that first knock. Elsewhere, Optic Gaming were eliminated as well, so their slow start here on Storm Point continues. They'll be looking forward to getting off this map and getting back onto World's Edge, but TSM now make their move forward. There's a couple of teams in front of them, and they're going to have to deal with them, and Verhost zooming in and out and snapping onto those in front of him. He just ran them over.
The comfort pick of the Hemlock as well, being in the crafter, means that Verhost is more than happy. Said, if we find a crafter, I've got the gun that I'm most comfortable with and confident with, and you can see why. As now Dark Zero fighting against Native, Rambo taking the high ground, and Sykes and Zero are quite low here, but they are fighting back.
Sykes trying to show what he can bring to this Dark Zero roster. One thing he doesn't want to bring is a grenade and a death box. Well, Zero's got enough shields back and should be able to buy enough time for Sykes to at least get back into this fight. A 2v2 still breaking out. It's Elevate versus Dark Zero. The wall is going to go down here from Zach Mazer, but can they take advantage here? They got the Prowler, they got a Digi, they've got everything they need, but they decide to rotate away from this.
So Native just got caught between those two teams and has now allowed Dark Zero to reset. They're back up. They're just like a phoenix from the ashes every single time. When you think they're down, they are back in the game, and they will now hold this southern side. They are going to have a slightly uncomfortable rotation into this next circle with other teams having eyes on them, but if you can trust anyone to call a play, it's going to be Zero here.
Yeah, the question is, do they have the wall available? Because we've seen them using a lot of utility to even get into this spot. The great news, though, for TSM is they completely and utterly own where that zone is going to be ending. Their rotate and their fight there against Eternal is essentially just opened up everyone else to have to fight their way towards them. LG are the closest team, you would say, but Complexity is shooting them in the side, so TSM should be able to get some damage. But look at this. Again, the brilliance of the rotate. They know there's a team up on the God Rock here, Dark Zero, but they've got a walk-in now. They have forced their way towards that zone, and maybe they're looking for KP instead.
Well, they forced the Bango out as well, and then they reposition slightly as Shooby-Doo, you're back in the game, are you? And he's going to get involved as well, as EA still going to be a threat on this map, as now LG are making their way uphill, as TSM have got eyes on them, though, and it's not going to be fun for LG. TSM with the ultimate high ground right now, and as you said, prime position to potentially win this game.
It sounds silly as well. The bins might be the best thing for them, though, because I'm not talking about the gameplay. I'm talking about how it's denying the LOS of Zach Mazer up on height, as well as Shubi and the rest of E8. Dark Zero, though, still alive, taking a little bit of zone damage, but look at them, Dan. They're still in this fight, and I tell you what, if Dark Zero can come out on top in this game, it would be an absolute masterclass in navigating here on Storm Point coming out from Zero.
And I will correct myself, I did say Ultimate High Ground. They're just the furthest north team, which usually is Ultimate High Ground, but Elevate, they have this rock to play off at the moment. Now, the circle, the final circle, is going to be pulling more south than it is north. So it is going to be pulling closer to Elevate, Ape, and Dark Zero than TSM, but TSM are the only team on this northern side. Now, that can go one of two ways, Mark. Sometimes it can be good to be the only team because the other teams focus on each other, but there's always the possibility that everyone looks at you when that zone closes. So TSM need to be thinking about this one, how they position themselves to get as close to the circle without taking too much damage, and this giant rock that Hal's found could be a blessing for them.
Yeah, it could be really, really good for them as well. And you can also see that they do have the Horizon Ultimate available as well. You would imagine from the time that's elapsed as well, since they took that last fight, they will have every single piece of utility, like the Dark Veil to go down as well, to maybe split this zone in half. But Shubi's got a wingman, and we know this care package weapon is pretty much as strong as you could imagine, and with some smokes and a digi on it, he can cause TSM problems here.
Dark Veil going down, and E8 look to be potentially sending, but there's going to be other players in the area, which might just ruin this push a little bit, but they were able to get the shield swaps. Now TSM have to be aware of where Elevate are going to be coming from, as Dark Zero now also throwing down the Dark Veil. A nice cross for you that you love to see. Looks like an A, Mark.
It does indeed. One team who were eliminated, though, the solo player from Ape Gang is out, so it's a straight 3v3 between E8, Dark Zero, and TSM. Three of the biggest hitters and three of the form teams, you would say, if you look at scrim results. But surely this is just going to open the door for a simple task for TSM, one that they cannot mess up. Dark Zero eliminated as E8 pushed them, damage done, and now it's just a case of walking to victory, surely, for TSM. But no! The fight has turned on its head here. Shubi's still alive, but no, TSM will manage to close it out. Just for a second, you thought Elevate might be able to pull something out of the bag, but no, TSM back to back as we finish our games on Storm Point.
There's always that heart-in-mouth moment when you see a knock happen and you wonder, could it be the turnaround? But yeah, TSM going back-to-back, and now I joked about bonus points and winning 4 games, but they're halfway there, are TSM, and it could prove to be very vital. They got that victory previously against Dark Zero, but again, the rotation is on point. TSM knew exactly where they wanted to play. They are the best team in the world. We know that, and they are proving why they are the best team in the world at the moment, still dominating here in Pro League.
I think the scary thing for me is how comfortable they're looking in their team fights at the moment. Every time we've gone to their POV so far, you know, Oxygen, a fantastic squad, right? But just got absolutely decimated in the first team fight that we saw them in against TSM. And then we saw the fight against Eternal, and it didn't even look close. You know, the amount of damage that was coming out of the Hemlock of Verholst, and you quite rightly said, like, that gun is still incredibly strong. If you can take the time to craft it, you should be taking the time to craft it. And I mean, the job was made pretty simple. Their decision was made pretty simple, as the two teams below them had to fight. You know, Dark Zero and E8 were going to have their line of sight clash, and TSM just had to clean up the pieces. One player did go down, but it never really felt like they weren't going to win that one. And with 12 kills alongside it, it's a 24-point bomb coming in from the 2023 ALGS Championship champions.
And you always wonder when you go from a world championship into a new season, is the best team in the world going to skip a beat? Is meta changes going to affect them? Is new legends going to affect how they approach the game? And TSM still performing well in this meta and starting the season just where they left off. So I'm sure TSM fans will be more than happy with the performance that we've seen so far. But we have to also shout out the consistency of Dark Zero and how impressive it was that Dark Zero even got to that point. They had their backs against the wall for the majority of the game, were able to get back up to a full 3, and they pull out 9 kills alongside it. So still a very impressive performance from them.
Yeah, very, very strong performance from them. Elevate as well, 16 points for them. And I mentioned in the pre-show that this is a team to watch because I feel like there's something good brewing here, and they're kind of going under the radar. Maybe a few names which don't catch the headlines, but it's the teamwork and sometimes the natural synergy that gets you into some great positions and creates a great team. And Elevate is showing really, really good signs of that. 16 points for them. 8GAM managed to wrap their way into some placement points as well. Complexity was some decent. LG with some good KP, but in that end game just got cut down on the cross. And another quiet game for Optic, you have to say.
Well, speaking of quiet games, our bottom 10 was still featured at points. It's not too many zeros. Teams still able to pick up KP and pushing their fights when they are available to them. Temper and FaZe, after having that initial contest, sadly for FaZe, even despite the fact they won it, they were pushed by Secret Formula, who had moved from their initial contest to take another one and take a third party off of FaZe. So unfortunately, FaZe won't have a chance to respond to that here in this match week because we're going to move to World's Edge next. But certainly interesting to see teams changing their drop spot depending on what's going down.
Great showcase of not only what this lobby can offer, but TSM and how to IGL towards success. When you look at the videotape, my goodness, I had a chance to watch the first game that we were casting, seeing TSM win against Dark Zero. They walked up on that final 2 fight the same way they walked up on the final 2 fight right here. They are just putting themselves in positions to win. And of course, you guys gave us your thoughts on it in game. Mark, Dan, I want to bring in AJ Hawk, who's joining us now yet again. It's been a minute, Jay. You know, we had a chance to talk to you in EMEA. Now it's North America. You've been familiar with all these regions, but this region is star-studded. How are you feeling? And for everyone as well who maybe didn't see your EMEA broadcast, catch us up with what's going on in your life.
Yeah, so I work a full-time job, but I'm actually going part-time to commit more time to Apex content. So that's super exciting. And living up to the excitement is North America. That first game was wild. I got to jump around from different streams. PLP with Phony, their comms were going crazy. TSM, Dark Zero, so many great teams. And that game one was amazing. And the next two followed suit. Like, NA is living up to the hype right now.
Yes, it certainly is an incredible day. I think everyone's been looking forward to the action kicking off. And I think you have to give a lot of respect to some of the IGLing we've seen so far. Some of the rotates we've seen and the play calls, understandably, I'm going to say from Zero and How, because they've been two teams who have been involved in those last two games and those final fights. It's a masterclass, right, to watch these guys do what they do.
Yeah, I mean, they're the best in the world for a reason. A clash of the titans, if you will, in back-to-back games there. They're showing why they're the best, and they're going to continue to show it throughout the splits. It's not surprising. We've seen them do this for years, so to see them continue to do it in day one, I mean, everybody knew this was coming.
Yeah, seeing the differences between EMEA and NA has been clear as well, certainly composition-wise. Is there anything that you really picked up on in differences, Jayhawk?
I did think that, I mean, we talked about this during the EMEA broadcast. The teams that had that direct priority were often controlling the games. The teams who were nearby wherever the end game zone was, they were getting to those power positions and they were holding them. As we just saw in back-to-back games, TSM coming all the way from Lightning Rod down to the south side of the map and winning 2 games in a row where they don't have priority. They're having to play edge and just fight their way in. I mean, obviously they're the best team in the world for a reason, so we're not surprised they're doing it, but it is different from EMEA where based on where the circle pulled, you could kind of tell who was going to win that game.
Well, speaking of circles, I mean, we have some final circles here to look at as well, Jayhawk, just as we did in EMEA. I mean, you said match 1 was exciting and you were bouncing around. I mean, what did you see between all the streams?
Yeah, this game was wild because I thought immediately we were going to get the Clash of the Titans. TSM, DZ, LG, Elevate, all these teams were looking like they were going to get to the end, but they don't. LG gets eliminated here, and we have a final 3 of Skirt, Complexity, and Oblivion. And I loved it because these are 3 teams that have something to prove. Complexity with a roster change. Skirt is a unison of multiple different players from other teams, and Oblivion coming from the PSQs. It was a really great end game, and I loved that to start off North America, some teams that people have had questions about sort of answered those questions immediately. Now, can they continue to do it throughout the day? That's the big question mark.
I mean, obviously game 1 gave us a hint that maybe Oblivion are going to be rotating well. They've practiced their storm point enough. Game 2 certainly gave us that information as well. As we kind of see it close out here, you thought maybe Sweet would get his first win. No, Arcology, Oblivion, Complexity, they would be in the mix, and they grabbed this one. But I want to talk to you about something I noticed and see if you've kind of picked up on this as well. For me, there's a timing thing to being in the right spot. We saw in game 2, Optic, they were positioned extremely well inside, you know, near Barometer, and they were kind of in zone early. But the teams that seemed to have the biggest impact in that late game ended up being the TSMs, the DZs, who got there a little later. And I'm just wondering how much that timing you're seeing play as a part of actually changing the tide versus just being in the right spot and maybe a little bit too early.
I do think it's important. Even Oxygen, who we just saw die in third there, they were sitting in that spot almost the entire game, waiting for Circle to come right in front of them. But everybody knows that you're there. You've been a target in people's minds for so long that all of a sudden when TSM and DZ just come in, you're having to readjust to this newfound information, and that adjustment sometimes doesn't come out quick enough. And when you're going against the best teams in the world, they capitalize on that brief hesitation.
It's kind of a weird thing, you know, but it's the old idea of, you know, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Doing the punching in terms of Apex terms really does allow you to be the one, I think, maybe with the step forward. This one, though, interesting. Do you think DZ and EA just decided, hey, best we can play for a second here, or was this just the nature of how these catalyst walls set up?
I think realistically, based on the positions that TSM had, they had the most cover, so naturally the other two teams are just going to duke it out and see what happens. But I do want to shout out E8 here because we've been singing the praises of TSM and DZ. E8 has been dominating in scrims, and the question was, can they continue it in Pro League match days? They're doing it right now. They're looking fantastic. In that game 2, they finished in 4th with 9 points. Here they get 16 in this game. They're living up to those expectations that they were setting for themselves in scrims.
And here are our final points. As you mentioned, TSM Dark Zero Elevate. They go step in step in terms of not just their gameplay in that final zone, but in terms of the points. Our top 3 teams, Oblivion with a good first and second round that's netted them 25, and LG always going to be a threat when you have someone like Sweet guiding you towards the end game. But taking a look at this entire roster, A versus B, Jayhawk, since we have you here, what's maybe the biggest story you're looking at now for the second half, our next transition into our last 3 games on World's Edge?
Well, I'm looking at Optic Gaming all the way down in 17th with 6 points, and I'm wondering, where are they? This is a team that dominated in that finals lobby at Champs, and they have not quite shown up yet, but I'm not going to give up. This isn't a team that goes down easy, and going to World's Edge with the POIs they have of Stacks and Big Mod, I'm expecting Optic to bounce back in a big way because I just can't see a world in which Optic is finishing 17th on the day.
Mark, I'm going to lead it to you as well. Any thoughts on what we need to see in this next half of these games for these squads?
Yeah, I mean, I want to echo that because I think Optic have been so quiet in those first 3 games. It's almost a surprise to see them there. It always is a surprise to see them down there. But the teams at the top are the ones we expect to be there. And like I mentioned, me and Jayhawk seem to be thinking the same thing at the moment because I was thinking about Elevate and what they've been doing in the build-up to this. Could they produce it here in round number 1? Well, they're doing it so far, but we're only halfway through. That's the crazy thing, right? It's very easy to take your foot off the gas, thinking that you're having a great day, that everything's going your way, but then the map changes, then the rotates change, then the contests change. All of this changes up halfway through. So it's about concentrating on the job ahead and not kind of patting yourself on the back too early here for Elevate. But I'm excited to see what they can do on World's Edge too.
So, AJ Hawk, before we let you go, I kind of wanted to give you a chance to do what you do. I mean, you're going, you know, part-time, so it's going to be more of these videos hopefully heading out. Every video starts with, what story do I want to tell? Over the course of today, we've kind of titled it The Great Reset on our end in terms of teams looking to see what they can do, shift the tiles, shift the puzzle pieces to have a chance at competing with the big names. How would you craft this story? What would the title of this video be in your eyes, and what can people expect who are watching the next few games?
Well, so far, as we've seen with TSM and Dark Zero continuing to dominate, a lot of people are expecting at some point someone else has to win a LAN, right? But if you look at the story from these two teams' POVs, they don't want to go down. They don't want to be the team that finally falls off and somebody else takes the throne. And so, you know, as much as we want to tell other stories and talk about the other teams, it still remains to be seen who's going to step up to the plate and do it. And as of right now, E8's trying, but even they are not able to overcome TSM and Dark Zero to start off NA Pro League.
Amazing stuff. It's really maybe who's going to elevate to that spot, you could say as well. Hey. Amazing stuff, Jayhawk. Thank you so much for being with us and hanging out on our half times. It's always fun. Make sure you are following AJ Hawk on all of his socials, his YouTube channel, fantastic videos. And I think, do you stream, Jayhawk, as well? You got a stream?
I do. I'm actually doing watch parties right now, so come on over if you want to.
All right, check them out. And hey, thanks again, man. We'll see you on future broadcasts, I'm sure, and definitely around the ALGS. AJ Hawk, everybody. Thank you so much, man. All right, we have the Challenger circuit as well for those who want to get involved. Maybe you don't want to analyze like AJ Hawk, but maybe you still want to see if you've got the skills. I mean, it's video games, you know, no matter what age, you can pick up a controller, you can pick up a mouse and keyboard and try it out with your buddies. We've had some amazing stories in the past with the Challenger circuit, and registration for February 3rd through 5th, Circuit 1, closes in just 10 days. So if you had an inkling, an itch, I don't know, just a thought, why not try it? I mean, what's the worst that could happen? Maybe you end up making something special occur. Anyways, wanted to give you guys that information. Dan, take a break. You've been casting. You've been here this entire first half. Mark and I are going to get into the second half of games. And I guess to lead into that, Mark, I want to talk to you about what does this mean here now that we're in World's Edge? One thing that we may see are some composition adjustments. I think we've gotten teams a little more used to that. I know TSM for sure adds the conduit to their roster when they don't play it on Storm Point. But, you know, what else does this mean for you map-wise? We've looked at this shift so much. I mean, at the very least, last 3 games of the set, you got to make things happen, especially if you're in the bottom 10.
I mean, I think it depends what POI you're playing from a lot of the time as well. If you're playing a very edge-based one, your composition is certainly going to change as opposed to maybe a team who's landing center. As far as the TSM conduit is going, I don't think we'll see it right now because they're not contested on Siphon. So I think you might see possibly a Fuse. We saw a little bit of Fuse yesterday coming back into the equation.
Wow.
Should I say the day before? We'll have to see. You know, we'll see what they pull out of the bag. You know that Raven's certainly got the whiteboard going in the calculations on what is going to be the best play. But we'll have to see, right? I think we're still going to see Catalyst. We're still going to see Bangalore. We're still going to see Horizon. The question is, are we going to see any Scan Legends? Because we've seen rat plays certainly be effective in those tunnels that kind of link a few of these POIs. So I'll be interested to see if Bloodhound does pop up once again.
An EMEA special. We'll see if North America tries to take it and put their own spin on it as we see FaZe, Sarah Tricky, Panders, and Snipe Down with the Conduit, Bangalore, and Catalyst heading over towards Geyser. One of those POIs that's rather central, gives you some access to a lot of different rotation types. Not everyone's favorite all the time, I would say, and you know, we do see a few in-game circles that can be a real mess over here, but FaZe electing this to be their spot, and right now in the midst of a little bit of a challenge. That's that Fuse you were talking about for the Knuckle Cluster right there.
Yeah, we are going to see the contest go down. This is one that's been going on for quite some time as well. It's going to be Dropping Gaming versus FaZe. You just wonder if this is going to be a contest where nobody got any opening damage. So is it going to be one that's a slow burner like it has been in scrims? I mean, honestly, this contest seems to have taken for 5-6 minutes to be resolved. Or are FaZe going to rotate away and try and play a little bit of a smarter game here? Go over to the no-name village, go over to the... and just see if they can grab a little bit of loot and continue on their way. Elsewhere, you can see the survey camp is looking a little bit ugly at the moment for 2 teams because there's some punches being thrown here. Complexity are going to be one of those teams. And of course, we have another team in front of them who's trying to take away the long-term POI here of Cole.
Lou, we know how gifted from a mechanical aspect this player is. Kimchi Lee helps support what was already a pretty well-earned fight. And he just pushed forward and they get 3 kills. That's a nice start for Complexity. As we switch gears, early fighting as well is something that we'll see probably more so as this day goes on. Teams maybe get a little bit more desperate, and you know, in some ways we'll see teams possibly give up, but it's always a risk to go ahead and challenge. You never really know, and especially game 4, so pivotal, Mark, and just setting yourself up for success to have a good placement in day 1. Skirt have done so, staying in 6th place and having a little fun on the Mirage ship as we get an overview of the map. What are we seeing?
Well, it's important that Complexity won that contest because the zone is going towards where they are basing themselves at the moment in that train tunnel. Native Gaming, they're in a really good spot as well. PLP, of course, they're going to be moving in. And this is a zone where you want to control that northern side, right? If you can get into a position, maybe hold down the northern side of that tunnel. If it pulls all the way north, you're going to have the least line of sights onto you. Being able to play in that little crevice that Complexity are maybe looking to move into now. Everyone working around Survey Camp, though. It looks like it could pull that way, but we do see the pull back towards Skyhook sometimes. So it's an interesting zone. I kind of want to see where the traffic goes, where everyone hedges their bet a little bit here, because it's one of those can go either way, and there doesn't seem to be a clear kind of defining a definition of that zone and where it's going to be pulling.
Yeah, and it does tend to be a bit, I mean, I think clear to a lot of these pros where the circle is ultimately going to end. So you may see some teams try to move a little quicker just to get into those zones, feeling a little bit more confident into where it might be. But at the same way, we've seen a lot of teams showing up late in those final circles have the better end of it. Phony can't quite decide if he wants to stick into that fight. He's going to retreat back with his squad and into the doors. The safety of some long-range pressure with PLP, Arcology, and Oblivion taking the trailer to the other side of them. Native as well holding the trailer opposite. So very congested in this camp.
Yeah, looks everyone wants to be in survey camp at the moment by the looks of things. FaZe, we mentioned how they decided not to hard contest, just split the loot and continue on their path. TSM are already making their way on their rotation as well, and just looking at what they're trying to do, you get the feeling maybe they're looking to head towards Overlook, get a bit of ring console information. Maybe they're looking towards Overlook and doing a little bit of crafting in and around Climatizer. It looks like there's no crafter available over there at the moment, so this is an interesting route for them to take. It looks like the long route round towards Climatizer and maybe taking the height of Epicenter to try and fight their way in. They know this is a tough zone for them to get into, right, from Siphon, so they're going to have some decisions to make.
And I think just limiting the teams that are going to be coming in, trying to pressure them from behind so they can play forward with the fuse, like you had mentioned, them picking up, opting away from the conduit. That offensive pressure and just pressure in general for teams who are already maybe in a better spot than you, but towards late game start to run out of grenades, start to run out of resources to fend off something like a fuse knuckle cluster again and again and again. There's going to be opportunities, I think, for TSM to siege. And so maybe that's why they're deciding, let's just keep things in front of us. But of course, they will run in up to a fighting team, drop in gaming. We've been fighting at the very start of every single match if they continue to go so. And of course, Dark Zero on the opposite side, they've got teams like LG and Complexity, no stranger to fighting early as well, who will be nearby as we take a look with Sweet on the Rampage, a weapon I love. You know, I love it, Mark.
It's true. You are a Rampage salesman.
That's right. That's right.
However, I'm not buying. That's what I'm saying at the moment. Okay, the budget's not quite there at the moment.
All right.
Complexity still trying to hold down this train tunnel at the moment. Interesting to see that there was a Bloodhound in the lobby, and it is going to be Dark Zero that we saw. They're going to be able to hit the survey beacon, which is going to give them not just information on where the zone is going to be going because of the fact they can see where all the traffic is piled up, but maybe if there's any isolated fights that they can take on the outside of the zone using that Bloodhound to be the fragger, to do that entry damage on with Jim Burton, of course, playing that legend. So interesting decision to run the Bloodhound here. Obviously counteracts that Bangalore, like we mentioned a little bit earlier as well. But LG, they're looted, they're looking good coming in from trials, but the question is, are they in a position to rotate through Skyhook here without having to take too many engagements?
I mean, the truth is, in World's Edge, you can get caught out, like in any map. You know, whether it's even Broken Moon, Olympus, those aren't competitive maps that we tend to see. Everyone knows in Apex, you can get into a bad spot and not really have anywhere to turn. However, comparing that to what Stormpoint can do in terms of getting caught out, you can be caught out so badly on Stormpoint that you might as well just walk away, throw your controller down, and just let them finish that off. They've got the better position. World's Edge isn't usually like that. You can play out of it. So I'm starting to understand this Bloodhound pick a little bit more, though we're still only seeing it with about 10% of the lobby. You're getting major value, and you're kind of saying, we don't have to have good RNG, we don't have to have the best loot, our early fight and rotation timing doesn't have to be proper, but we will be able to see and have presence in this end game as long as we make it there. So for a team like, you know, I think Dark Zero, with the confidence of a million teams put into one, I think they're going to be happy with saying, all right, we'll take a little risk, maybe don't have as much mobility, but we are definitely going to be able to be a threat with our controller players that we lean on in these end games.
I'm interested to see that apparently when you play Rampart, the walls are not affected by gravity because those things are at an angle. That is like, that is
she just hammers them in real hard. I mean,
yeah, those things have got some grip. That's what I'm saying. Ape Gang are going to have this height on survey. We did see where the zone is going to be pulling though, and it is going to be pulling a little bit south and actually towards the west side. And I double checked once again with my directions to make sure they were correct this time around, towards where, surprise, surprise, Elevate Gaming find themselves. So all these teams are in survey camp at the moment are going to find themselves having to leave, having to move. One team who is going to be safe in zone, who's kind of playing the exit of the train tunnel to the north, is going to be Dark Zero as well. LG, they've taken the Vol tunnel, they're going to be safe as well. TSM though, they're the ones with the hardest rotate here of our big hitters so far in this lobby. They have to move all the way from Epicenter through the traffic, down from the height, down to the low ground, the train station, to try and fight their way into zone.
Just an over look at Epicenter as to the positioning of TSM. Sometimes a very dangerous spot to play, but they do have a gravity lift that can get them up top, maybe buy them a bit of respite if things go wrong. But you can't always plan to go wrong. In fact, this moment right here, there's a ton of planning because this next zone in round 2, it's going to move, but it's going to close so much due to the fact that we've pulled all the way north to this map. So every southern team is going to have to push in behind them. TSM have made a long rotation. They will be safe for the time being until round 3. But that's about it before they're probably going to have to move. They're praying that thing comes their way. Meanwhile, Zach Mazer and LG in the midst of a tangle, one below and one above inside the building. Let's see who gets the edge.
Well, someone just came flying towards him. That might have been Sweet, he's on his back at the moment, but Sweet might have been able to do his best Superman impression and get back to a position where he can be rezzed, and that's exactly what does happen. So both teams are going to be able to reset here. Even though a couple of knocks were traded, no one was in a position to finish them. So we are going to see the continuation of this fight. Elevate control the inside, which is always going to be better because you could be the team looking out. Underneath is so vulnerable unless you have a legend that can eat up grenades like Watson. With that interception pylon, you're just kind of waiting for damage to be done because you don't have a way to create space around you.
Unless you have pressure on the outside, which is, maybe what's happening here with some of the rotations. It has to be worse for Zach Mazer and them to try to pressure because they might get poked from a third party. Otherwise, LG is pretty much in trouble. They are not in the driver's seat. You could say that, at least in this position. And that's one thing that is extremely important to know. DNO Gaming, 2 points only. We're in our 4th game. Duplex, Sinox, Crust. Impressive pros in their career so far. Together, not putting it on the board the way that they would like. Could this game be a change? They're going to have to get through this very contested choke mark. And Optic Gaming, another team who high expectations haven't really shown up today. They need to get through it as well.
They do have a great position though, Optic Gaming. They're trying to hold DNO out now. Right, well, they've managed to force them to retreat. And with a little bit of a spray coming in here from Noct as well, they're going to keep chipping away and keep trying to gatekeep them on the outside of this zone. This is a big opportunity for Optic Gaming. However, keep your eyes on the top right side of your screen. There are 19 squads still remaining here. Only one team is a duo as well. So, I mean, it's pretty ridiculous to see that amount of players still in the lobby, that amount of teams, as Zone 3 is about to close in 60 seconds time.
And it's the exact opposite of what we would see in probably a storm point south the North Pole, just because there'd just be so much chaos. It's so difficult to traverse that amount of space and that high ground. So many other teams are just positioned easily to pick you off, add damage, third party, and make it difficult. But in this strange way, we have seen all of these teams land enough north, land enough west and east, that there really hasn't been too much of a committed fight. And maybe that's also the fact that it's game 4 and they know that the stakes are high. Optic Gaming and DNO still holding each other on the southern side of where the zone will move. TSM at Epicenter where we left them, and they will have to cross phase. But I'm focused on the north. That's not enough space for what looks to be about 11 teams sitting at the top of this, Mark.
Yeah, I think one of the contributing factors to why we're seeing the lobby how it is with 19 squads still alive is I think there's been some pretty bad zone reads, maybe some early bad zone reads that everyone else has kind of piggybacked off of. Teams maybe who didn't have survey beacon information themselves see the traffic, they see a scam, whatever it might be, see teams rotating, and one bad rotate has kind of turned into a few others where they thought survey camp was the play, and instead they've had to change that kind of plan now that they've seen the zone is pulling away. One team is making an early move to the other side of the zone smartly as well is going to be Complexity. Complexity do manage to hit the balloon inside of the train tracks and get all the way across to the other side. And look at the kill feed now. That's what you're going to see. This lobby is going to get cut in half as everyone has to leave survey camp.
Yeah, and it's exactly it. That is exactly what happened. They called survey camp. At least 5-6 teams called it. Probably more of the lobby called it, but just wasn't there. And now they're in trouble. These teams fighting for it, and this is what happens sometimes when you make a bad call. You got to work with what you got. Native Gaming don't got a lot. Bangalore ult beside them, double time passive. An X for Klein, 30% more movement speed. Piercing spikes, 1 of 2 down for Rambo. His return back into the ALGS, at least for now, is going to pay off as Mamba fires a spray and gets hit with a black hole. Not enough to kill, a grenade to follow, and that is it. Rambo trying to make himself out, but it's going to be Oxygen who cleaned this one up. There's no way they're getting through the trio, Aiden, Reeds, and Vayne on that one.
Yeah, perfect, simple third party as we see TSM now under a little bit of pressure from FaZe, and FaZe have managed to at least get themselves a little bit of loot, and TSM are fighting with 2v3 against the high ground. Imperial Howl has gone down. They're trying to stick the res at the moment. Oblivion going to be eliminated as well. One of those teams who took an early rotating decision to go into survey camp. They've had to leave, and this is one of the beauties of Fuse, right? You can suppress the team on high ground. You can allow your teammates to get the time they need to get back on their feet. There's the Q away as well. Howl will go down once more though. FaZe are trying to push this.
This is very rough, and there's no ultimate to use. He's got it at 73%. Must have used it just a little bit ago, maybe just to establish this new space coming out of Overlook, Epicenter. But this is where you need to see reps go big. He started this fight with about 100 damage, and he needs to get up to about 500, 600. Waste at least 4 or 5 shield batteries here. Force that space and time to get his teammates back up, because it seems like the challenge with FaZe just did not go their way. And I think at this point, they may have abandoned it. I'm not sure, but FaZe looked to have taken over that space. Reps hiding behind this rock, just trying to salvage what was a fight that did not go their way. And hats off to Zeratricky and Panders. You can see how good they are at maintaining not only an advantage in terms of a fight, but also just fighting in general. They're deadly.
They're calling a MOBA here, and I'm wondering if Reps is thinking, hey, I could ult this. I could ult this and really cause some problems, because he knows both players are going to be pretty close to that respawn beacon. Maybe he's thinking about doing it late so that he can kind of escape and hold FaZe up. But Snipedown is going to be back in the game, and we've talked about how the respawns are very different this season than previously. You come back in with shields, you come back in with guns. You got to hope you can get back to your death box for a bit of ammo and maybe some attachments, but you could cause problems as FaZe control this side of zone at the moment, and they're trying to force everyone away.
I mean, let's just not really talk about Reps anymore right now, because I'm looking at him. He needs a miracle to survive. He's in the middle of GKS, and FaZe and Oxygen are about to make their way over, but maybe miracles can happen. We've seen crazier things. Let's hold off though, and let's be surprised by that. No surprise here with Ape Gang, who have maintained this position. The rampart walls are working for him. Bursty, the only rampart in this lobby, and the only one we've seen all day long, showing exactly what this legend can do and what legends can do in general when they're given their prime positions, their prime circumstances to be successful. And this is exactly how you want to use a rampart, to hold space and to dominate from it.
Well, TSM will be eliminated. It's not back-to-back-to-back for them. They cannot recreate what they did at Champs. DNO are also going to be eliminated. That long-standing battle that we saw with Optic Gaming comes to an end. But Ape Gang up on this high ground. They've held this for so long. And like you mentioned, with Rampart in the composition, those walls allow them to do exactly that. They will have to move as well. But I want to see the conclusion of E8 versus LG. Both these teams have been coexisting for so long. But only one can leave this side. And Optic, who had a pretty good walk into this zone as well, have lost skill cakes. This is a big opportunity for Optic. They cannot let this kind of game from this kind of position not total up to as many points as they can to get back into this series.
It's one of those zones that tends to end under or around those train tracks, right where Optic are hanging. And looking towards, Darkseer already have a great position there. FaZe kind of going to be able to be the troll under the bridge and work their way out from behind. But you're right, LG and Elevate, these two teams been teasing each other all game long. LG making the first move, Bangalore ultimate in kind from them. They can get a swap as the ultimate hits if they want to do that. Sweet, not sure if he's waiting for it or he's just going to try to take it. They avoid it nicely there, and they have a chance to win. We've heard them once. They couldn't quite get the job done, but they were close. Let's listen into LG and see if they can take the win.
Give it up here, another one. Help me. Get. They're right above me. I'm hitting Fletch. Kill them. On me. You. I clipped one. Kill him. Should we climb? Yes, fine. Last one. Oh man. Wait, you didn't kill him? No, I just shot by all the gym. When I'm saying kill them, why are you asking me to climb?
Certainly couldn't do it, Mark, but that doesn't mean they didn't give it a try. It's chaos here as the zone starts to push in.
And it's E8 who seem to be winning this fight, right? Knocked his last player alive for Optic, but E8, who were inside that building for so long, delayed long enough for LG to have to make their move first. They come in and clean up this side of the zone. They now own it. But who is still in this lobby? Is Optic and GKS full? Surprise, surprise. It's Dark Zero again involved in this final fight. It's a 3v3v3. Elevate, Dark Zero, and FaZe, who made that decision to not contest hard over at Geyser. They left wanting to play the long game, and that decision has paid off.
Just incredible from FaZe to make that move and find themselves here. They played with nobody behind them, and Dark Zero have just had the best spot the entire time near these train tracks. They can play height, they have cover with these boxes and the mountains from above, and they also right now have a Bloodhound ultimate. We're going to see how this works out. Doesn't look like they're going to be missing much. Elevate, however, they're going to be missing all of their members, as that is an easy wipe. It's going to be a FaZe and Dark Zero 3v3, Mark.
Yeah, damage been done as well here by FaZe. You can see the Zero's taking an off angle though, but can he survive? Ooh. No, he can't. It's going to be FaZe who get that first knock, but Sykes is going to answer back. Sykes, the new pickup, looking once again to prove he is the man to take Dark Zero back to glory. A second one for him as well. He wants the 3-piece and he's going to get it. Dark Zero will be your champions here, and Sykes showing exactly why Zero and Jen Burton put their trust in him.
You know Dark Zero's been waiting for that one. They were so close, so long here in this ALGS Day 1 of our Year 4 split, but they finally get their win. And Mark, that's got to feel good. They have been maybe, now when you look at it over the course of 4, the most consistent team in being involved in these final circles, and they finally get their win. This is the Dark Zero we expected to show up today, maybe even better than we expected.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of important moments to talk about Dark Zero's game that we just saw. Is Bloodhound being able to scan and find out where everybody is on the map, not just the circle information, and then playing away from that huge amount of congested area that was survey camp became.
Yeah,
gave themselves kind of, if it does go to survey camp and everyone fights, we can play from that. If it does pull away to train station, we can play for that as well. And playing that kind of 50-50 position allowed them to get ahead of traffic when it did pull away from survey and put them in a good position to essentially move in and win that game. But I'm a little bit surprised to see E8 not put up more of a fight. I think there was a couple of long-range shots that came in from Dark Zero that got that first knock, and then they bunched up and grenade damage was enough. But FaZe, I mean, I will say they're going to be extremely happy with that performance. I think a lot of people might have looked at this roster and thought, hey, this isn't one that jumps out to me on paper, but I think that there's still a lot to be said for the 3 players on FaZe here. I think they're going to be a little bit of a dark horse going through this season, and I'm a believer. I have to say, if they can either win that contest over at Geyser or decide to get enough loot and can consistently get enough loot and leave, I think they've got it in them to put some good points on the board consistently.
I mean, it's not like Zeratricky and Panders aren't proven. Snipedown, we know, leadership-wise, absolutely proven. Winning-wise, absolutely proven for multiple games, and especially here in the ALGS, just hasn't picked up that flow recently, but this could be it. Elevate Gaming, too, you're right, I was surprised, but when you look at the way that most teams are used to fighting within smoke right now, it's rare that all 3 teams have that level of the ability to fight you so clearly without digi threats on them. It can happen there, but I think there maybe was, oh man, we're fighting a Bloodhound now. This means that we have got to take the pace to a different level. We're not going to be able to hide at all. We have to treat this as if it's go time 100%. Optic, decent game. 8 Gang had a really strong showing, and I'm liking the Rampart. And as we look towards the bottom 10 of our showcase in game number 4, still teams that can easily keep performing. Oblivion maybe comes to mind. They've been very consistent over 3. Their first stud so far on World's Edge. I'm sure they will bounce back from that. PLP, I've liked to see what they've done. A 0 this time around, and obviously Complexity. They were in the mix, a top 2 finish in game 1, 13th here, but still 4 kills, showing, Mark, that they're willing to fight, and they're feeling pretty good in terms of their, at least, contests.
Yeah, the contest looked pretty comfortable for Complexity, to be honest with you, but apart from that, not really too much to talk about. They forced their way into the top 10, but I think that was just from the long-term position that they did have. It was the next fight where they really didn't contribute enough to force their way towards that end game. TSM had a little bit of a rough game there, a very tough rotate for them. Decided to go from the side of Epi, which was a little bit of a surprise, but also you can understand it coming down from that height. Maybe they thought it was going to pull back towards where those rocks were a little bit more, but I mean, TSM, they're not going to win every game of Apex Legends. It's a fact. You know, you do still have bad games, even though they won 2 back-to-back.
I mean, I just want to bring up again, TSM, Dark Zero. We've seen that back and forth last year. We see it today. It's just so much fun to watch on North America when you have 2 great fighters going at, and it really reminds me of a little bit of Messi and Ronaldo, you know, for our football fans out there. Just 2 greats, people, obviously different types of accolades at different times, but you can tell the talent is there to be able to win it all at any given moment. Talk to me just a little bit about, you know, not only just Jen Burton and Zero picking themselves back up after a disappointing finish in Champs, not what they wanted, but also how well Sykes is just meshing into the squad.
Well, first of all, I just need to say that between Messi and Ronaldo, it's completely incomparable, and Messi is a far superior football player. But anyway, Dark Zero, let's take a look at what they did in that game, because I think You know, you're talking about synergy, you're talking about teams coming together, and I love the way that Sykes is playing on this team, by the way. I think that Sykes plays best as almost a secondary slayer, and I think he steps in perfectly, right? He can capitalize on damage that Jen Burton does. Jen Burton goes in, and a lot of the time he will be an instigator in fights alongside Zero, who can get a little bit of damage down, and then with the movement he has on MNK can usually get out of there, which leaves Sykes in a perfect, almost natural feeling role for him on this team, which is just to move in, clean up the damage, use that R9, that car, whatever it is that he's so proficient with in those close range fights. And it's almost as if he can take fights without pressure a lot of the time, because a lot of the work would have been done by his two teammates. And I think that final fight was a really good indication of what Sykes can expect to do on this team. And I think it makes Dark Zero a very good looking unit. But you never know with Dark Zero, you know, the next event they might not win it, and then they just make a change.
I mean, exactly. I mean, I wonder too, I mean, one of the thoughts I had, and this is something that we can talk and bring up, and as these weeks go by, is maybe that there's an age component as well. Maybe just the way Zero and Jen Burton, or their length or tenure together in the ALGS. Zainu coming in new, a star in his own right, but Sykes maybe a little bit more tenured, a little older, maybe something more alignment in terms of the way that this is fitting right now, in terms of the goals without needing to really speak them. Obviously everyone wants to win, but there's just different paces, different decisions. How do you practice? How do you think about the game? Maybe this is just something that meshes on a lot of different levels for Dark Zero, but we will find out very, very soon if they can keep this up. TSM don't win. They don't go back to back to back. It's Dark Zero's turn to claim the limelight. When we come back, 2 more games to close out day 1 of year 4. We'll see you in a sec.
Welcome back, everybody. We got 2 more games to go, and it's going to be Gaskin and myself to take you through those 2 games of World's Edge. A little bit of a change-up with Dark Zero coming out on top, Dan, and I need to get your opinion. Messi or Ronaldo right now? Let's start the Twitch chat off again. Who are you picking, and why?
Messi every day of the week.
Thank you. That's all I needed. You don't need to give me a reason, because I know you're a smart man. TSM or Dark Zero? Oh, I'll wait for that one. I'm not gonna throw you under the bus that early. I'm sure there'll be some people in the chat who'll be coming after you otherwise. But what did you take away from that last game? Because it looked very impressive from Dark Zero.
Yeah, I think Dark Zero have clearly got a formula that works here, right? Zero has been looking to find a squad that will be able to put his plan into action, and it very much worked there in match number 4. More of the same. The consistency has been incredible from Dark Zero. They're the most consistent team now after having the 4 matches, with TSM falling a little bit earlier. And as we know, consistency is everything in Apex Legends, and we'll have to see whether they can carry this on into match number 5.
Well, here we go then, everybody. Match number 5 is live. The teams are going to be dropping out of that dropship, and World's Edge is looking as beautiful as it ever has. Who's going to take this one away, though? That's the real question here. Dark Zero, they get the win. We're going to see the contest potentially between Eternal and Complexity again over at Survey Camp. A couple of arc stars are going to give the indication that is going to be the case. And now I want to see what happens over here at Geyser as well, because FaZe, it was an interesting strategy that we saw last time, Dan. They kind of went for the halfway route and looted their way back didn't take the hard contest and decided that they think they can get enough loot from these buildings to continue their game.
Yeah, FaZe dropping in the middle, taking these kind of circular buildings, whereas Dropping Gaming dropping on the edge, and then also going into Vault a little bit to loot. Both teams leaving themselves room not only to loot up as best as they can, but also escape in a certain area. So we'll go back to this contest where there is actually fights going down. Complexity taking a few shots, but it looks like they were able to do some damage of their own.
Oh, I tell you what, if you watch Monsoon stream a little bit of ranked, you'll know that he loves the Sentinel. And he ain't going to miss too many shots with it. He's got an R9 as well, but he's got to be careful because that door is causing problems. He's going to be forced to queue, but he's not going to connect. And he's not going to be able to get his teammates queued now as he's had to use it somewhat selfishly for himself. Can't quite connect this time, but the R99 is pretty good. Lou gets the first knock as well onto Carter. And now that allows Mon to re-peek. And if he can re-peek with this and hit some shots, then it's going to be a highlight clip for sure.
Re-peek, reposition, and connects. Doesn't matter if it was on the kneecaps, on the toes, but you take it.
It was in the head. It was 165. Ow. That's like getting a cast iron pan to the back of the head.
That's how much a frying pan would do.
We just bought a cast iron pan, by the way. That's the only reason I would ever talk about that. So yeah, it's just in the front of my mind.
Well, stakes on you.
Yeah. Come around.
You can see there the kill leaders of the day, by the way, all 3 members of Dark Zero featuring in the top. Not really surprised after their consistency so far. They have been so impressive. But the early tests, are you still thinking about stakes?
I don't know. I never thought I'd be talking about cast iron pans on the Apex Legends Global Series. But another fight going down here with Oxygen and Secret Formula.
Yeah, Secret Formula just trying to hunker down a little bit. Watson fences go down for protection. They've also got Catalyst to barricade those doors to make it even harder. This is one of the most difficult fights to take sometimes when you're stuck in this building. So many doorways to try and defend, and the team that's attacking can pick and choose just how they want to pluck you out of this building. So I'm interested to see how Oxygen go about this.
Yes, Reed's running with a Buster Sword. Takes control of the door on the outside. He says he's going to pull that thing out. No material added this time around, but looks like Oxygen, we're going to decide to leave this fight for now, and I think it's smart. You can see there was Watson fences down. There's potential of a gen coming up pretty soon. It also slows down the rotate. So Oxygen, having not got initial damage, decided it's more important for us to continue on our path. One team who's also continuing on our path in a more aerial route after hitting the evac is going to be TSM, who are working their way into Monument, where it's looking like teams are starting to stack up here. This could be our end game.
Yeah, I think everyone is banking on Monument here, and TSM already landing and having to take a fight. It looks like they're not able to commit to it, and they're being shot by more than just one team, and this is not fun for them at all. Dark Veil goes down just as the extra little bit of protection as TSM trying to reset. Oblivion also in Monument doing some damage here to the TSM squad that are outside.
Yeah, there's a really good wall actually coming in from Verhost on the Catalyst to make sure that he cut off the line of sight, and also gave a little corner just for everyone to heal up, and maybe TSM will think about pushing this again in a few moments time. But it's going to be a pretty tough push for them if they do just try and decide to do so, because of the fact that it's a narrow doorway to walk through, and I think Oblivion want to try and force them away. I'd like to see them be a little bit aggressive here, maybe just have a little bit of a peek, as we do see Hal go down. I'm pretty sure that was a Kraber shot out of nowhere, and now TSM, well, they're in a little bit of shambles.
Yeah, this isn't going to be easy for them. They might be able to get Hal back up if the team in Monument doesn't push, and that Thermite might be able to help out. And unfortunately, Power goes down. And CSM down to just a 2 now. And who else? It's Zainu with the Kraber as well from distance, being able to finish off that knock.
TSM at the moment are probably thinking, this isn't a very fun game, is it? Just let us survive. And now they've got decisions to make. Do they go for the banner? Do they try and get in a position to get Hull back in the game like we saw Dark Zero do? I was holding my breath to make sure that the Kraber reticle didn't wobble for Zainu there, because you could see he was lining it up.
He certainly has a sight line on it, but doesn't want to waste too many bullets on kills that they can't necessarily convert. So just going to hold and have some trigger discipline. As I say that, he's like, actually, screw it, they're on the balloon, it's easy targets.
Imagine if he hits that with the bullet drop. That would have been quite some shot. Zainu now decides he's going to turn his rotation away. And you have to say PLP, not only are they in a great position power-wise, because they have the height of epicenter to look over all the teams moving in from Monument, as TSM, of course, found out. Having that Kraber up there as well makes it so difficult for any teams to even consider pushing them. They know where those bullets are coming from. They will have heard that Kraber being fired in such a distinctive audio cue for teams around. So PLP are going to be safe up here for quite some time.
Yeah, a great circle pull for them and the position they found themselves in, as everyone's going to have to head to Monument. There is still places to play here, or space to play, either way it works. A lot of room on the southwest side, and even though it's not going to be a guaranteed position for you in the late game, it is somewhere you can survive if you are rotating late from the southern side. So it's not going to be all doom and gloom straight away, but you need to have a secondary plan once you get there. So there's kind of checkpoint areas where teams can position themselves temporarily, but then what is the bigger picture? How do you win this game? That's what everyone's thinking at the moment. When you're in this kind of stage, everyone's like, where do we need to go to win? No one's really committing to fights and committing to just second place just yet.
One team that is committing to fight is going to be DNO, and they've got a fight going down at the moment, just up on those tracks. Xenox has taken quite a bit of damage himself. The Conduit always going to be down as well, and it's going to be DIG who are causing them problems at the moment. Duplex, he's got a Buster Sword of his own, and I've got a feeling that it's probably slowing him down a little bit because that thing's pretty heavy.
Dupe just has to be careful here. He was maybe hoping he could get a little cheeky res off, but it's not going to happen. There's too many teams with eyes on, and it's just about survival here. Still 19 squads remain, so you know that every angle you take, any position you try and move in, there's probably going to be someone who can see you. It's not going to be an enjoyable experience from here on out, but other teams looking just to try and pick up that free KP, really.
There's so many bad Final Fantasy VII references going through my head right now, by the way. See the Buster Sword, he pops the Phoenix. I'm like, he'd use the summon. You know, it's all of that anyway.
We get it. You love Final Fantasy.
You can tell I was excited by the crossover, everybody, can't you? Yes, okay, I was alive when the original came out. What are you going to say about it? FaZe, though, they're back over towards Geyser. Made a little bit of a change, and maybe just going for a little bit of a, shall we say, the comfort of home, where they did land, and trying to rotate how they would want to had they not been contested.
I actually really like this FaZe roster, and the more that I see them play, the more that I think they can be a real threat coming into this season. I've always had a lot of respect for Snipedown and his ability, but we've got to talk about Pandas and Zera and what they've been able to do previously on other teams and what they add actually to this roster. I think that as a unit, these guys, they play in a similar way. They know what they want to achieve, and in the fights we've seen them take, they seem to be working well, and chemistry is naturally coming to them here. So I think as they grow and as we continue to get through the season, they're only going to get better.
Yeah, I think that's the important word to use though, right? Grow. I think one thing that people were looking at on this roster is like, who is the leader? Who is going to be taking the reins? And I think Zera Tricky has done the majority of that. You could say that maybe co-IGLing has been Pandas, and Snipedown's been put into a position of comfort, which is pick up the kills. You know, do what you do best and make sure you hit those nice Snipedown-like flanks and you clean up damage that we do. But Oxygen Esports, who, speaking of fraggers, are three of the best. And they're having to force their way through the tunnel at the moment, and Reeds is going to be taking off that head glitch.
Well, actually, I think they're holding out this team in the tunnel, so it's working out okay for them. You just have to sit back, wait for the other team, and press their advantage if it comes up. Black Hole will go down, but 30 damage, 15, 30. Oh, it's good ticks with the Volt to make sure the Sleepy Panda goes down. The rest of the team supporting Vayne there to get the initial knock.
Sleepy Panda, take a nap. As that first knock is not going to be capitalized on as yet. As we see now the swing coming in, the shots from Reeds again are going to be pretty good, and surely this is going to be a clean wipe. No one should really be thinking about going down here for Oxygen, and that's exactly the case. A great team fight from them. They hold out perfectly. GKS will be eliminated. It's our second squad to go down, and once again, Dan, we have a slow burner of a game where we are seeing everybody realize, even in week one, how important every single game is here to make sure that when the standings are done at the end of the season, you have as many points as you could have racked up.
Yeah, I mean, there was a period of time during ALGS where you would just get points for where you finished in the overall standings, but now it's about your accumulated points of where you've placed, of where you've got kills that go into the overall standings as well. So it's not about trying to play catch-up in games 4, 5, and 6. Instead, it's about trying to put as much points on the board in general, and that's why we still will see teams playing it slow, playing their game, not doing anything crazy, not taking too many risks, even in these latter matches. Now, there was a short period where Skirt were also in landslide looking at Oxygen, but that fight finished too quickly, so they moved back north, and they're one of the 4 teams that are outside of this zone at the moment. Everyone else kind of in Monument, in and around it. Teams like FaZe, Optic, Drop In, they're all gonna have to move in ever so slightly. TSM's still alive with the 1, by the way, but teams like Elevate, LG, Oblivion, Native, Dark Zero have all found home in Monument, and they'll be able to stay there for quite some time.
Yeah, I wonder if TSM's a 1 or a 2. It might be stacked up on top of each other. One team who was a 1, who has become at least a 2, and in fact, they've become a 3 is DNO. We saw them take that fight. They're over at Geyser at the moment. They're going to have to work pretty hard to get back into that zone, though. They should have some crafting available. over at Geyser. You would think maybe to get the right amount of meds to get back into this game. They do have an evac tower by the looks of things. Otherwise, it looks like Dupe is just 10 times faster than everyone else. But FaZe working their way in here to Monument, the west side of it at the moment. And I think one thing to talk about here with FaZe is this is going to be a tough rotate for them to make. And these are the kind of games where I think you get a good gauge on how a team is going to be led, because they are going to have to work their way through the majority of the lobby here if they want to be successful. It's not an easy move for them to make, and with 50 seconds left, this is where the decisions are going to have to be made. And I'll tell you what, we've got a listening ready. Let's go into the comms and see exactly what the plan is.
Yeah, Monument's so new to me still.
Yeah,
look around, just start. Ping, I want you to ping something.
They just like.
I mean, I just know bridge, and we can work in from bridge, and that's all I really know.
Okay, bridge, do bridge here. Find LOS.
There's a team right next to me. I just landed on a full team.
Bro, my game froze again, bro.
I just landed on a full team. That was fucking tragic.
God, bro.
They're all on the bridge. Oh my god. Hey, we just went way too fast, I think, right there.
Well, it didn't go well, I think, is the takeaway from that one, Dan. Still waiting to see what the results of FaZe are going to be in these tough rotates.
But that's kind of exactly what you were talking about. Like, there was questions made, no really solid decision. It was like, I think there's only bridge that's available for them, and sadly bridge wasn't available for them, and they will go down here as our team's starting to lose members. By the way, confirmation TSM are still a 2. I did double check that one, so apologies there, but that could change very quickly if Dark Zero start to get involved. But even as a 2, Verholst is still able to pick up kills at the moment. Complexity losing a couple of players.
Dark Zero inside of Monument, though, and once again, somehow, they've just managed to work their way into a pretty central position, taking the inside of Monument. By the way, developers, I really want to see ALGS, like, trophy room added here. I'm just saying, just an idea. Don't worry about it. It's a free one. You can have it. You can take it away. But it was Optic who were holding down that bridge. They've got to be careful, though, because Zyno is still up on this height. The difference is, as Oblivion are eliminated, he's only got one shot left with his Kraber, and it needs to be good. It's 140. But it's not good enough.
Also, a trophy room wouldn't be that difficult to design. There's only 2 teams that want trophies, so surely we can get it put in right. But I remember you saying that when...
Game dev's easy.
Yeah, so easy. Just throw it.
Just build
what
it.
do we know? Complexity of fallen, by the way. 15 squads now remain, so everyone's picked up an extra placement point. PLP still holding this high ground and still threatening everyone that is below them. It's Dark Zero who are trying to press their advantage here at the moment, try and show us even more consistency going into this match number 5. They could really be putting down a one heck of a score this series.
Well, Flat are going to make their move at the moment, and they're going to try and push here. That Q is going to be good enough just to slow this push down, though. Flat trying to move in and clean up the damage, and should, you would imagine, be in a position to do so, but, I mean, that's felt like a fairly unnecessary frag grenade to take. However, the Q does come in now, and now you're going to see them try and flood into this building, finish off these final players, and one's on the toilet. It's never a good place to be caught with your trousers down, Dan.
It's like Jurassic Park all over again, as unfortunately, he's going to be at his demise whilst he's singing songs on the loop. But 28 seconds until this round closes. And I will say, where this zone is moving, DNO in a pretty good spot. So are Drop in Gaming, and so are the 2 remaining players of TSM. But it's whether you can hold on to those buildings, because people are going to be trying to take that prime real estate off you, as Ape Gang outside of the circle at the moment, but they are going to be approaching from the southeast. Maybe they can find something to work with.
They should be able to just sneak their way across the bridge here. They won't be safe on the bridge, but if they can slide in late and maybe take advantage and third party something, there is a play to be made. PLP, who have had to leave, of course, the height of Epicenter, now they're in the position that TSM were in early game. And inside of the building is, I'm pretty sure, still Dark Zero. So this could be a very interesting fight. As now we see TSM under pressure, they will be eliminated. It's DIG who move in to clean up the final remaining 2 players. This is one of the prio positions, but I think the difference now that you're seeing with Monument in comparison to previous World's Edge iterations is there's playable space, but it feels like there's so many angles that you can get shot out from, instead of just being, you know, cohabiting some of these buildings where you can have 3 or 4 teams stacked up on each other.
Yeah, you're so vulnerable from different areas that you never really truly feel safe, especially when there's Krabers and Bocheks in the lobby that can just pick you off in a couple of bullets. So you do have to be careful, and that's where some of the legends that give you a little bit of cover will come into play here. But now we'll see whether PLP, how they want to approach this next circle. But for now, they're more than happy to reside in this current area as Oxygen Esports go down. 11 squads left.
It's Optic who pick up some of those kills as well. You saw Skittle Cakes, and Optic, speaking of which, they're going to be on that edge of the bridge at the moment, and mentioned how Optic had a decent enough game in their first one on World's Edge. The second one is looking pretty good as well. One more team to be eliminated before they find themselves in the placement points, and Dropped, I mean, There's a reason they like Big Mord. It's because you get Big Mord weapons. And look at that R9. All gold, Digi-Threat, gold mag, plus the smokes of the Bangalore. He's going to be in a great position to entry and get some decent damage they can push off.
PLP, who have looked very confident in their fights all day. Only on 14 points at the moment, in 12th position overall, but still with 2 games left, they could certainly hurtle up the leaderboards in the kill feed. Sweet's getting some action, and temper will fall. Now we're down to just 10, but it looks like LG, even though they pushed that one, they're now being griefed by another squad.
They are, but they're alive for now. Where is Sweet, though? He's on his back for now. It looks like they're going to be trying to move into a position, but dropping down might have been the worst decision, as now you'll find a team walking around that corner is going to take them down, and it's Dark Zero, who, again, picked the perfect moment to pounce on a team who was weak, who looked vulnerable, and LG will find themselves the most vulnerable as they will hit the death box.
Yeah, taking advantage of some of those squads that were just griefing from a distance, and that's what can happen here when it's such close quarters, but a lot of open area, like you mentioned. There are going to be bullets coming in from other teams that maybe aren't involved in the fight, but can help you out a little bit. Dark Veils have started to go down just to give a little bit of extra coverage to those teams who have to make a move, as Skirt are going to be on top of this railway, but you know, you're very vulnerable up here, but as long as you can be big, as long as you can output a good amount of damage, you can make it work.
Sykes under pressure. Zero trying to back him up. Elevate, who have had to force their way forward. Well, they're going to be taken down. It's another top 10 finish for them with a couple of KP, but this time it's Dark Zero who come out on top. But look at Native. They are holding down the angles, and Dark Zero, as great as you are, it's very unlikely you win this unless your name is Sykes and you're playing Conduit. He is destroying them and forcing Dark Zero into this zone.
Somehow Dark Zero still alive here and forcing Native back and making it work. And Sykes, you know, there's a lot of pressure on this young man's shoulders being added to this roster, but boy, is he living up to expectations. They may well go down here, Dark Zero, but they've been able to stay alive to get those extra placement points at the very least, as Sykes still just about surviving.
Yeah, Sykes is still a problem as a solo. DNO will be eliminated in the meantime, and I tell you what, Sykes, he's found himself a kill onto Xenox as well. He is the player that sends them to their deaths. Unfortunately, he will be sent to his as Optic will move it. Optic now into the top 5, Dan. It is almost like they have risen. As soon as we changed over to World's Edge, Storm Point looks a bit ugly for them, but World's Edge is looking a completely different story.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Optic got a beacon throughout the entirety of Storm Point, and perhaps that was one of the reasons why we didn't really see much success from them, but maybe it's going to be a little bit better on World's Edge. Now, Optic Gaming looking to try and press in, looking to try and find more success. Let's jump into a listen-in and seeing how the green wall's going down.
Yeah,
yes,
left favor, one of the left scaffolding.
He's just staring right there. If they bang ult us, I'm gonna insta bangle back.
Okay, I have wall. You have all right skills.
They're getting shot by a lot of people. Yeah.
I think they got knocked.
They might have. Yes.
Do they have a gen shoot a smoke at if you?
Hey, on bottom. On bottom, blue armor, 30.
Looking.
Rolling a nade on him.
I'm gonna kill him.
He died.
That team is hard focusing.
There's two guys under. There's two guys under.
Left is hard focusing.
They're staring. They have Kraber dropped.
I have a smoke down.
They have Kraber though.
I shit on them.
They wall.
All right. We can play off their wall. Play off their wall. I'm peeking it.
Almost cracked the top.
I'm killing cat.
Selling.
Last guy hit 50 blue. 50 blue. I'm batting.
Fucking ults. Climbing up here.
Breaking it. They're on the wall.
Yeah.
Batting.
It's last guy.
All that. Place though. You should maybe wall this. Maybe wall the right side.
Wait.
There's a bangle. There's a bangle.
Yeah. Climb up and wall the right side. I think we have wall the right. Yes. They're both left. They're both left.
Okay, I'm going right. We
have all the space. I banged towards all of them.
Nades.
I'm safe on me.
I'm getting back here.
Safe on me.
Yeah, safe on me.
Popping a cell.
Just fucking play.
Hold here. There's a second floor. 120 on a conduit, I think.
I'm safe on this fucking crate.
I'm playing on you. Our wall's about to go down soon.
They have to drop into each other. 78 on top guy. They walled. Don't let these get right side. Oh, we can't.
Yeah.
They just have to drop into each other, I'm telling.
I might just where's the other team? Okay, they're on the height.
They're fighting. Queuing up.
Yeah, they're there.
Turn on 150 dead.
Yeah. On our right, on our close right, careful.
Yeah, careful.
Horizon's one, they're both one.
Okay.
On you guys.
Last guy's one.
Get second.
We got second.
Okay. Nice. Bro, they had to ape us, man.
Yeah.
Flat will be the champions of the penultimate game here. Optic gets some good points on the board, but it's Flat who are holding down a really strong position for the majority of that game, Dan, who do get their first win of the day.
Yeah, and you saw how Albrelelli up in the air, just disrupting Optic Gaming as well, and giving Flat a little bit more freedom as they utilized that Dark Veil to push over onto the right-hand side. And it was what Optic were worried about. They said, don't let this team push on the right side, but you can't counter a Dark Veil sometimes without a Horizon maybe to get above it, especially when another team can potentially drop on you. So unfortunate for Optic, but they still secured a second-place finish with KP, far better than their performances on Storm Point earlier today.
Yeah, it should push them at least up towards the top half of the leaderboards, which is a big difference, right? We talk about some of the weeks that you look back on if you don't qualify for LANs, and there's usually one outlier. If you're pretty consistent and you at least put points on the board week to week, then you feel confident you're going to have one good week at least. And a team like Optic Gaming, with the talent they have, you expect that to be coming. And there's still another game to go. Remember, for Optic, it could be a completely different end of the day as it was after 3 games. So Optic, a very good start, but Flat, again, a team who we haven't mentioned yet. They get their first win of the day here, and a strong performance from them to show a little bit of resilience in that final circle, and good decision making when the pressure was on.
Yeah, good decision making, and you say it all the time, hitting their shots as well in those final moments. We can see teams get those positions and make good decisions, but you have to follow through with the damage afterwards, and they were able to do exactly that. Yes, help from the other team and Albrelelli dropping in where he did, but you still have to convert those games and take those chances when they're presented to you.
Yeah, it's very, very impressive stuff. This is how things look after that game. Of course, Flat on top. And you can see 12 placement points, 8 kills, 20 points total for them. So a very, very strong game. And we mentioned how Optic felt like they had a strong one as well. They had 8 KP to go along that side, that second place. 17 overall for them. Dark Zero, a little bit further down with placements, but 9 kills, Dan. 12 points for them again. They will be extending their lead to the top.
Yeah, really just putting down and laying down the points at the moment. 12 is a huge game considering they finished in 6th place, and that's thanks to Sykes at times just being able to be a one-man army in certain scenarios, getting them extra couple of placement points on the board. So very important for him and for the squad. As we look down at the bottom 10, I'm sure there were still teams who were able to pick up kills here or there. Yep, just a few threes, a few team fights won between certain squads, and then again, early fights not going the way of other teams.
I did want to mention as well, by the way, Sykes somehow got Dark Zero out of that position, and I don't know if they were alive along. They were actually, because he got the kill onto the final member of DNO, which gives him an extra placement point as well. So just little things like that, a lot of eyes on him, understandably, joining that Dark Zero roster. It's a big move to make, right? It's, you know, Exet are a team who have had success in North America. We know how good they've been. Have they been able to turn up on LAN in the same way? You have to maybe say no. Historically, they haven't, but Dark Zero have won championships. You can kind of maybe understand why that move was enticing for him. But again, he would be aware of what's happened previously on that Dark Zero roster, right? He would be aware of some of the roundabout of players that have been there. But I got to give a huge amount of respect to him for making that move, for making that play, and backing himself and showing as well in the first week here that he can be that consistent missing piece that maybe Dark Zero and Jem Burton and Zero felt themselves might have been missing.
Yeah, and it's, you know, even though it's a tough decision and it's a risky decision, it's a smart one as well. You're joining LAN winners. You're joining the only other team that has ever won trophies in this game, and you're putting yourself within the opportunity to be the best, and you're trusting that Dark Zero can find that same kind of firepower that they had in previous seasons.
Well, one team who, of course, we've got to talk about is going to be Flat, the winners of our previous game, even though we had a big points total coming in from Dark Zero. These two teams that we see on our screen were very much involved in that final fight. First place and second place, 12 placement points and 9 respectively, as you would imagine. And not much between them, Dan. You're looking at damage stats, you're looking at assists, maybe a few more for Optic, but that's about as close as it gets.
Yeah, quite a similar story, really, and the only thing that teetered Flat over Optic was the fact they were able to win that last fight and get that extra little bit of damage. And just a comparison of Nano and Skittlecakes as well. Very different story, but Skittlecakes for me is always one of these players that you can rely on to put the damage. But Nano with 2k damage, really stepping up for Flat on the Bangalore and making sure that they are making themselves as big as possible, outputting damage like that.
I've got to say, I do like the logo, but as we all know, the Earth is a cube. Anyway, moving you through to the totals. It's a joke by everyone, don't be weird. Dark Zero up on top, 82 points, and they are establishing a lead, Dan. Now,
well,
get excited, everyone.
Don't you say it.
There might, I'm not going to say it until the end of the show, all right? I'm just saying potential bonus points. They win the next game.
I don't know, if they win by more than 50 points, they will be awarded with an extra bonus point.
Potential?
you know, TSM would have to fall early again, which it has happened. World's Edge hasn't really gone the way that it did for Stormpoint for them. But most importantly, Dark Zero have 82 points, Mark. They are putting on such a clinic at the moment, such a huge points haul, which is going to do them wonders, even early days thinking about qualification for playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's a great performance from them, a huge amount of points. And I think as well, with all these team changes that have gone down, no one really knows how it's going to work until we get into these lobbies. And I think if you have early success here, like Dark Zero have, and as they would expect to have as well, I think it just means that they believe that this was the right move, right? And they're going to feel very, very confident going into the weeks ahead. Speaking of what's coming up, we've got one more game to get done, and we're going to go for a quick break before we get there. We've got one more game on World's Edge. When we get back, we're going to bring it to your eyes. Welcome back, everybody. I tell you what, it's been a great day, Dan. It's been so good to have the ALGS back. I've had a smile on my face for the majority of the day because I've just been enjoying being back and seeing the Apex on our screen, seeing all the team changes and how they're working out. But we've still got some unresolved business ahead of us as Flat take the previous game. We've got one more game on World's Edge to see if Dark Zero can complete what has been a pretty much perfect first day for them so far. If it ends with a bonus point, by the way, you've got to come up with something. A bonus. I don't know what it is, but
a jingle.
It's a moment, Dan.
It would be a moment. At some point, someone will achieve a bonus point in this ALGS season. I promise you that. But will it happen on the very first match day of Year 4? That is the real question. Back over to the contests that are happening then. It's going to be Geyser again. FaZe looks like they're going to go for the same kind of path. They'll take the center zone, and on the flip side, it's going to be looting over towards Vault. So it may not even be a contest really at this point. It's both teams splitting the POI.
Yeah, this is just yeah. I mean, it has been a contest, but I think both teams have realized that there's not really any point. We get enough loot, which is somewhat surprising, seeing as Geyser is seen as one of those POIs that doesn't have the best of loot pools, but it's working for both teams at the moment, right? Both teams have got into good positions towards the end game, and LG have come out of their drop here in what looks like a little bit of an early contest with some pretty good armors as well. So LG, who have been inside of end games, you would say, a fair few times. I'm talking top 10 as we move towards zone 4 and 5, but I haven't been able to really convert on those special moments yet.
Still, though, a good amount of points. 5th place, 31. They've done pretty well, especially considering Dark Zero have been mopping up the majority of points here. And when these lobbies happen, you have to make the most of it. You have to find points where they're available to you. And I will say LG have done well with that. Even with bad situations, they've been able to force rotates to put them in better situations for those final circles. And it was looking a bit dicey against Skirt here over towards Lava Fisher. Elevate were also taking a look at it, but LG able to come out healthy and well. Now, now. We were talking about the contest that was happening down at Geyser, or the split at Geyser. And we're heading down there between Lava Siphon and Geyser. Might be Hilltop on the house is where our finish could be. And FaZe have positioned themselves very close to it, but Drop In Gaming taking one of the priority positions.
Yeah, they are indeed. And TSM, this is going to be an interesting one. I'm just trying to see. I think they did have ring console information. So look at this decision being made by TSM. Defining quick rotate, leaving with white, blue from Siphon because they had a ring console. And of course, they have the ability to hit it. So they're going to be in a great position here to get into a good spot what they believe is going to be for end zone. And I'm pretty sure that anyone who goes through Siphon would have seen the TSM aren't here. Where at TSM, we're going to have to follow them.
And look at everyone following as well. As soon as they see someone in the sky diving over towards Geyser, other teams start to follow suit. There is a lot of copycat nature in rotations here in Apex Legends because not everyone is going to have beacon information. Not everyone is going to have ring console information. So instead, you have to kind of look to the skies and see what's happening elsewhere. And sometimes you'll replicate that. Sometimes you'll commit to what you think it's going to be. But a lot of teams moving further into Geyser maybe than they would usually.
Reps just about made it. I always feel like on the crosses when TSM make rotates, if one player goes down, it's Reps. I don't know why it is. I mean, he's got the best movement, right, on M&K, but it always seems like he's the one who gets focused. I kind of feel sorry for him. I don't know why. I've got a lot of sympathy for Reps and what he has to do for TSM and the fact that he doesn't get enough love, okay? I'm just saying. I'm the biggest Reps fan out there.
But arguably at times he's going to be the most important player. I mean, we talk about M&K, we talk about controller and the differences that they're available to you, but we know that Reps plays a vital part for TSM. But you're right, it does seem like...
To say, we've had Messi versus Ronaldo. Let's not bring up M&K versus controller.
Yeah, that's a very different conversation, which will spark outrage, I'm sure. But Elevate making their rotation through the tunnel. And it looks like they were able to get ahead of the likes of LG, the likes of Skirt. They didn't really press onto the third party. And instead, quite intelligently so, they move in and will start to make their rotation.
Yeah, I've been pretty impressed with the decisions from EA. I think one thing that maybe Zach Major as an IGL has been a little bit guilty of sometimes in the past is not taking that extra beat to think about the decision. And it seems like this time they're just taking that extra second sometimes just to make, is this the right play? Yeah, it is. Okay, let's commit to it. Instead of I'm going, everybody follow me. You know, I think that the communication's been pretty good, and you know, watching them go through the PLQ is a good indication of how their comms are, of course, been sounded and how they have been commanded by Zach. And I've got to say, I've got a lot of good things to say about this team. I think they really are working well together. And plus, Zach's got the Buster Sword. You know, I'm a big fan immediately. Hey everyone, I played Final Fantasy. Did you know that?
Right, just as a final note on this,
go on. Yeah.
The reason why I love the Buster Sword is because you can have it on any legend, and I actually love that I can have an heirloom no matter who I'm playing. But yes, I know you love Final Fantasy. I can tell.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Well, they're making...
Go on.
I was a little bit worried they were going to be pushed by this squad. I thought the nade was coming their way, but actually they are the aggressors, and they won't be challenged just yet. But the circle, with it moving so far east here, everyone on this western side kind of has to move one of two ways. You have to go fast or slow. If there's any middle ground, you could be punished. So you need a clear direction of which way you want to move.
I think one thing to point out here is a comparison of something we talked about in the previous game where we were saying, hey, FaZe have a tough rotate here. They have to go through a lot of traffic. They had to go through Monument. And when we went to the listening and the decision-making process, it sounded a little bit like there was a lack of confidence on the call and who was going to be making it. Well, let's compare what happens in this game to Dark Zero, right? Because they've had to go all the way over from Skyhook trial side towards where Geyser is going to be. And that is just as tough a rotate. So many teams to have to go through for them. And I'm just interested to compare how they navigate it in comparison. Because this is an opportunity for TSM to maybe close that gap, right? TSM were in second place before that previous game. Dark Zero have kind of extended that lead ever so slightly. But TSM have perfect prio to this zone. Plus, they had the ring console to give them a little bit more zone information. So it's kind of a tale of two different teams this time. One's quickly rotated to what they think is going to be Godspot, and one has to work their way through so much traffic. And you can see Dark Zero there right at the top of your screen, making their way just past Countdown towards Monument, and TSM bang in the center of that zone. I think it's going to be a very interesting story to follow.
Yeah, you've got to look at the entry points here of Geyser and surrounding areas. Chokes on the northern side, a big choke on the southern side as well. So your safest bet you'd think would be arriving from the west, but then you're going to be going through the most amount of teams because there's the most playable area there. So there's going to be a lot more eyes on you. So it's whether you try and be sneaky and make for a south or north rotation, or whether you just try and brute force your way in. There's always the option of evac towers, and we have seen successful evac towers so far today. Speaking of the devil, Dark Zero are going to start evacing themselves closer towards zone.
Going to have to be a step-by-step process again here for Dark Zero, and they do have the little bit of the cushion, so to speak, with the points that they've already put on the board to know that even if they work their way into the top 10 here with a couple of KP, it should be enough, you would imagine, to maybe win it. But elsewhere, there's a couple of teams who are having to work much, much harder for placement points, as well as KP. That's going to put them in a position to move up and forward in those rankings. Skirt is going to be one of those teams. You can see that Albrelelli at the moment is having to hit a few wall bounces to avoid some bullets, and they've just about managed to do so. I say that, though. Albrelelli's going to have to hit more if he wants to escape and be able to heal.
Has a Phoenix kit available to him. Just needs to have cover from the rest of the team. He should be fine. That's cover for you. Oh my goodness. The 30-30. Doing exactly what you will need and what you require when you are covering a teammate. Disgusting gun, I will say, by the way.
Double heady. And the body with the HCOG. Okay. Awakening. Name to watch for sure. PLP, though. One of the names to watch last season, a man who ended up winning a LAN championship. He's going to be a death box right now as PLP will be eliminated. And even though we were saying some good things about it, I think they'll be a little bit disappointed with their final standings here as Complexity. They'll be in a really good spot here. They have the Hill House, and this is a great spot to be holding for this zone.
Yeah, the PLP's day started a little bit better than it ended, that's for sure. But Complexity, 9th position, 26 kills, 26 KP, no, 26 points. They haven't got 26 kills, ignore that. Their overall points is 26. They're looking to try and improve that going into match number 6 here. And they should be able to do so from their position. There's definitely points that are available to them. Speaking of flat, our previous winners in 6th at the moment. They're arriving from the southeast side, but a few teams holding them out from Lava Siphon. And with the circle now moving back over to Siphon as well, ever so slightly, depending on who had that ring console information, this may change rotations a little bit, and we might see more teams just trying to stay alive on the edges of Siphon.
Yeah, interesting to see what the play is here for a few of these teams. Skirt's still being chased, by the way. This has been a little bit difficult for them. They finally will have their game ended. It felt like they were kind of just being chased or stuck between a couple of teams a few times, and they weren't able to make too much work. That Dark Veil was going to be perfect, though, to stop the push coming in from Oxygen. They do want to push, by the way. There's a Skynade for them, a little present with their name on it. And Oxygen, who, again, 11th place today, haven't had an Oxygen day where they've had a game where they put up a huge amount of kills, but 11th place puts you in striking distance here, right? If you finish inside the top 3 with some good kills, then you could turn that into a 6th, 5th, 4th, even 4th if you can convert.
Yeah, you want just to have a consistent amount of points each week if you want to be ending up at playoffs, and I'd say personally for me, you want to be aiming for 30 plus if you want to be. If you can achieve 30 plus each week, you're probably going to be in a relatively comfortable spot, even if you don't have one of those demon weeks. But Oxygen are capable of having that big game, so they certainly can propel themselves up the leaderboards here in match number 6 if they can find themselves in a good position. Speaking of positions, this was the northern choke that I was talking about. Dark Zero are going to hold, and it's just Temper. They're the only team on the northern side that really Dark Zero should have to worry about.
Yeah, Dark Zero have got all the head glitches, all the rock formations to play here as well. Temper are going to have to move towards them. You wonder what the composition is for Temper, maybe, if they have a Bangalore that can force Dark Zero back for a few seconds to give him a little bit more space with that ultimate. But look at the zone down and look at FaZe. FaZe are slap bang in the center in one of the only buildings that is there. There's a couple of areas, of course, that you can play for cover, but FaZe are going to be feeling very good, and it's another opportunity for them to convert on some good points.
And we'll come back to that later after this fight between Dark Zero and Temper, but it looks like it's going to be the end for Temper. Dark Zero pressing their advantage now. They just need to be careful they don't lose anyone in this push. With Cloaked falling, this should just be a matter of wrapping it up and hoping no one pushes. But actually, I'm seeing on the map overhead, Eternal have used this as an opportunity just to pass by these teams and maybe taking Dark Zero's position. So Dark Zero, with their aggression, have now lost their spot on this choke, and Eternal are about to bring the fight to them.
Yeah, but look at the wingman. The wingman's been picked up, and I know it might seem like it's not too much because now the positions have been swapped around, but one headshot with that wingman's going to hit for 95, and trust me, it hurts. So one wingman is enough to take down 2 players, you feel, in some of the Dark Zero players' hands. Eternal got to back off for now as they try and retreat. Shot's going to be delivered to their back as well while they do so, and I kind of like this decision, to be honest with you. Sort of the fight wasn't really there for the taking, didn't get the initial damage or the knock on the third party, so decided, let's play gatekeeper, let's play the high ground and force them to move towards us.
Well, they were in vault and they literally heard the damage and decided to take that chance and take that risk, but Dark Zero are pressing up and getting aggressive on them. Meanwhile, Optic Gaming down to just a 2, and they're playing a game of survival down on the low ground at the moment. This is always such a tough position to play because there's going to be so many eyes on from high ground, but Skillcake's just doing what he can to survive it as well.
Optic down to 2. Dark Zero taking on Eternal once more. Zero's taking a huge amount of damage, and so is Jim Burton as well. Look at Jim Burton down to the definition of 1 HP, but somehow Jim Burton gets the first knock. I mean, it's just what he does, right? He's 1 HP, he turns around, he hits the dirty 30 shot, and that's what I talked about. The opening damage is massive in fights, and now Jen can move in. He will go down, but Eternal will be finished off, and it's Sykes. Surprise, surprise, who moves in to clean up some of that.
Yeah, Dark Zero should get the reset here. No one's going to push up this hill onto this choke. So even though they lost that position temporarily, they knew how important it was to be aggressive and retrieve that position back once more. Now, going back to a previous point you made about FaZe being in Central Circle, they didn't even have ring console when they dropped. The other team that dropped with them would have taken that ring console out on the outer side of Geyser. So they were just kind of hedging their bets and going off of what they had seen just from their original Circle knowledge, yet still find themselves in a great spot.
E8 have found themselves in a good spot as well. They're in the bar at the moment, and that building will be safe as the zone starts to close as well. LG have moved through the choke, and they're kind of posturing at the moment with GKS on that eastern side, but Complexity, they're still inside one of these buildings, and they're still trying to fight at the moment. Looks like a little bit of cohabitation going down, though, as Oblivion are going to be on the outside looking to poke and prod, but they're going to take the bridge instead, moving back and retreating to a safe zone for the next zone close. Looking elsewhere down, you can see on the map overhead, TSM, I'm not sure what the zone read was or the decision was, but they're going to have to work pretty hard to get back into this zone now.
Yeah, they were very much thinking it was going to pull over towards kind of the Hill House and Geyser. Hasn't done so, and now this is where you get to see what a team does when they've made a decision when the zone doesn't go your way. Where do TSM go from here? Elsewhere, you saw on the southern side, there's about 5 or 6 teams all in the same area, all still on the edges of Lava Siphon at the moment, who are all going to have to move in. Ape Gang, Oxygen, Flat, Secret Formula, all just hunkered down and so close to one another, and Native also in that area too. So there's going to be a lot of action in the kill feed shortly as TSM send an evac tower to the skies, and, well, let's see. Where do you go when things go wrong?
And taking a little bit of damage while they do so. 2 evacs do go down just to make sure the one doesn't get destroyed. And TSM maybe thinking about playing the crane, maybe thinking about playing the wall. Are they going to be safe? They have to use the Dark Veil, and that means they're not going to have it available. Some shots coming in from all sorts of directions. Can they stabilize here, TSM? It's a risky play. There's a team up on the crane as well. I get the feeling that TSM might be forced to take a fight here, and if I know TSM, they might think about forcing the fight onto FaZe.
Yeah, people shooting blind at the moment, shooting through the Dark Veil, but still doing damage, which is very annoying for TSM, but they're going to heal up. As soon as this Dark Veil goes down, they are extremely vulnerable, so they do have to be careful. They're maybe just hoping that they don't have a sight line on them, and as you say, otherwise they might have to take the fight, but they're trying to make themselves big. They're very much puffing their chest out at the moment and dealing damage where it's available.
Well, meds is a problem for them as well. You can see that Verholz only got 2 cells. He's got 3 bats to play with, but when you're taking continual chip damage, that's going to put their healing economy at a little bit of a premium. Also, still, no attachments. You have to wonder with the SMGs when they come out as well, will they be able to win fights with someone against that mag that's just going to be able to do that a little bit more damage for a little bit longer. But look at that kill feed. Dropping gone, Flat gone, Complexity gone as well, and TSM are safe. Let's jump into a listen in and see if they can survive this situation.
Yep. Team across.
We don't want to drop low ground. We have Nozick cells, right? Can you put a Moby down? Can you put a Moby down so we can get cover? Maybe on this fence right here? Yeah. Can't play that because it's gonna be someone's below me. We might get pushed because we put a Moby down.
Popping stone. Team on top bridge, peeking top bridge.
What do you have, Kello?
Set 50. One half.
No cells, no ult cells. Bridge. Yeah, shoot bridge. We gotta shoot bridge. Infuse off bridge side, okay?
Okay. The dude over here, I'm gonna fuse like right here.
You wanna cut off anyone that tries to come this way.
I'm gonna try to.
Use your thermites. Use your thermites and shit. They're fighting north side.
60 on 2 over here.
Look north. 3 kills north.
40 flash on 1. Them on 1.
Look east. Look east. Look everybody for east.
I'm gonna fuse east. Top bridge. Fuse thing there. Walk up.
I killed 1. I killed the 8. I killed the 8.
Nice. That's huge, bro.
Look east.
I don't have anything east. I have no hits east.
They might be playing.
Dark Zero fall. TSM still survive here, and they also take down EA. You heard it from the comms that is a massive kill for them. That opens the leaderboard for TSM to maybe do something special.
Yeah, the fact they've been able to get into this position, survive, and then still fight their way out is very impressive from TSM, but are they able to win the game from here? That'll be the real question. Can they close that gap between themselves and Dark Zero with them now falling, but also put some big points on the board for the overall standings? Reed's in a tough spot between a rock, and Oxygen looking to just try and survive and maybe get some placement points.
Well, TSM are taking a little bit of damage. You can see that Hao has had his shields broken and flesh damage as well. He's going to have to take the seconds to just heal up. And again, we talked about the economy of meds here for TSM. That could be the one thing that hurts them, as well as maybe ammo. As you can see, that's starting to get burned through as well, as TSM are having to fire off against teams on the outskirts just to kind of deny them walking in, pick up some KP, but also keep their spot safe. But for now, it's working for them. But look at LG as well, Dan. LG, once again, into a position here to maybe capitalize on an end game. The story for them so far is close, but not quite good enough in those final moments. Is this going to be the game where it changes?
Certainly, LG and Oblivion both in good spots at the moment. If they can just avoid the damage that's arriving from the teams that are up on the high ground, then they may be able to worm their way in. You can see the circle is pulling ever so slightly closer towards the likes of Oblivion and LG, but everything can change if you send it a little bit too soon, if you start to get focused. And actually, Oblivion, they moved in. They said, actually, we don't feel safe here. They try and dive on Oxygen, and because of that, they've taken too much damage. Reeds is still alive. LG capitalize on it as well, and Oblivion have lost the majority of their team, if not all of it at this point. It looks like they've gone down.
This is really interesting because Ape Gang are going to have to leave the height, which means they have to fall from above onto where TSM are. Oxygen Esports have been eliminated. In the meantime, the solo has gone down, and TSM were able to wait just a few moments later than their opponents, and now they're going to take on FaZe. And look at Verholz go! So much damage coming in. Pandas will fall. That will be FaZe wiped, and not only are FaZe wiped, this is the opportunity for loot that TSM have been desperate for so long.
I think FaZe still have one alive, but certainly the damage has been done. You can see Zera's just about surviving as a rat and trying to take FaZe into the top 3, but LG might spot him out soon as TSM go up into the skies, but will not dive down just yet. Don't worry, Mark, I didn't say it. I did consider it, though, as MK Reps goes down, but Verholz sends himself in. 8 gang eliminated, 3 squads left.
Can they hold off the push, though? That's the question. Imperial Hao is left on his own. 8 gang down. FaZe eliminated. And it will be LG in the final game who introduce themselves to the Apex Legends Global Series. This is the story we wanted. LG, Sweet takes down Hao. And maybe that decision is going to make them feel a lot better about this team change and what they can achieve in the season ahead.
Yeah, there was a lot of questions asked about Luminosity in general picking up this roster, especially the roster they had dropped previously, who were a top 5 team, now PH, of course, and maybe a new team, but we will see what the name's going to be next week. These guys have demonstrated time and time again that they can get into final circles. We just hadn't seen them convert today. They convert it, they get it done, they play it successfully. Very impressed with how that's gone down. That's going to be a big points total for LG as well, which is going to put them right up there when we look at the overall leaderboards.
Very, very interesting to see how these leaderboards do look at the end of things as well, because we heard from the TSM listening, they were very happy they'd eliminated E8 because they knew how close they were on the standings as well. Dark Zero forcing their way into a position where I think they got inside of the placement points, and they also definitely had some KP to put on that, so you would imagine that Dark Zero, they've probably done enough to hold down first, but for everywhere else, it's very interesting. FaZe as well. Decent points in that game, but LG, I think I mentioned how team changes, the only way to kind of validate them and feel confident in the decision you made is to win games of Apex. Well, LG have done that today. They win that final game and shown that they can get it done in the end game.
Yeah, we are going to see the gap closed as well with the points total from TSM. They put 17 points up, only 1 behind LG in the end. Looking elsewhere, FaZe 0 kills, but they were able to get into that final 3 with that rat in the end from some clever map positioning, it has to be said, especially without a ring console to work with. Dark Zero down in 10th, but they will still have the kind of trophy, as it were, today. They are still going to be our victors. They are still going to put down an incredible points total across the 6 matches. But the top 10, a very impressive game in some teams who really needed it.
Yeah, Elevate again inside that top 10, some KP, some placement points. That'll do them every single day of the week. Elsewhere, the winners of our previous game, Flat, not so much of a good game in our final one of the day. Just a 1 point for them. Skirt a little bit quiet, and POP, I have to say, a little bit quiet today on the overall standings. Complexity as well. They had a pretty good start to the day, but just got a little bit quiet towards the end of it. And I think it's going to be interesting to watch how the final standings look now that we see A and B conclude. And we see the points being put on the board down.
We're certainly starting to see some front runners, I would say, in this region, Rain Day. I mean, it's clear that Dark Zero, TSM, Elevate are all up there, but LG also putting themselves in contention to be mentioned here.
Absolutely. Killers ready to go, win any game at any moment. These are the teams in A and B that are going to give us an electric performance every time they clash. We'll be seeing, obviously, this group come together in a few weeks again, but that was amazing. Let's walk through those last moments on World's Edge, because there are a few teams we mentioned at the top, guys. You know, TSM, DZ, obviously FaZe had a good game there. LG with their first win, which was big for Sweet. But in this first World's Edge game that Onset, you and I cast, there are a few teams that surprised me as well. E8, great positioning. Dark Zero, they really started to turn the corner and really put themselves in first place. But teams like Ape Gang, who 10 points in this last game in game 6, had really the god spot for most of the time here before this final zone.
Yeah, they did. They had a really good spot up on that crate. And the difficulty, as I mentioned, is the zone pull away from them kind of just caused them a few problems, because they had to drop from that height and they had multiple teams below them. Unless you're the Horizon, of course, who's going to be landing and with the passive be able to essentially have gunny up as soon as you land. Everyone else is just going to take a second to get in that fight. And we know how good these teams are and how well they team fight. That second is enough for damage to be done and for the fight to be resolved. But I think Dark Zero, for me, and probably the team, understandably, who were the most impressive today. And I'm not just talking about results, I'm talking about synergy. I love how Sykes has just naturally fitted in on this team, right? Everyone has a clear role with just naturally how they play Apex. And I think I'd be pretty scared if I'm the rest of North America and the rest of the world at the moment with how they are progressing as a team in what is, I would say, arguably a very short amount of time that these players have been playing together.
It's really been a marvel to watch, and we've seen it unfold right before our eyes. The questions becoming statements and then being answered so emphatically that there's a ton of exclamation points, kind of like you're trying to sound pleasant in a work email and not saying something that sounds like, hey, that's not going to work for me. When you go into the second game, though, game 5, I think ultimately this kind of set the tone of, could we see the start of something new for Optic, who I think, Dan, were on the tip of our tongues at the start of this match, kind of fell to the wayside for most of these games.
Yeah, really struggled on Stormpoint. As I said, it could have been down to lack of ring console for them, but the fact they had this game, which I believe puts them around 5th place in the overall standings, means that it's still a successful week for them, despite not having the luck on their side, as it were, over on the other map. So it's so important when you have these opportunities to get into a final circle that you do capitalize on it. Sure, Optic didn't win this one, but it was a big kill game, a lot of placement points that they have to work with, and they'll be delighted they were able to put something on the board in what was a rough week for them, but I'm sure they'll still be happy.
Not even a great week, but they still, just with their, it seems like their fundamentals, get the job done and find a good placement so that they can work on things next week. I am still waiting for who is that person on Optic who's going to step up. It's been so many times Hal on TSM. A lot of times it's been Verholz, though. Who's going to make the big play for Optic that really puts them into the next echelon? We know who it's going to be when we talk about LG as well, and that seems to be what started here. A fire burning physically in front of TSM, and this as they kept the high ground, but low ground, a fire burning inside. LG knew they wanted to get a win, at least one win on their debut with this new roster, and Sweet, Slayer, and Funk did just that. Sarah Tricky doing a good job to get some placement points. Obviously 4 squads here, so surviving to get that top 3, which makes a difference for FaZe. Really solid performance from them. But Verholz, Hal, they go for the KP. They feel pretty safe. First is a little too far out of the way with how well Dark Zero played, and with E8 gone, they don't really have to worry about winning this one. But LG, you know, they wanted it, and that leads us to our overall standings of day 1 in Split 1 in year 4. Dark Zero, 90 points. No bonus points yet, Dan, but a heck of a day for DZ.
Yeah, no jingle that I haven't created yet, but very much will make one if it happens.
I'm ready.
If we see a team get a bonus point. So kind of we see our big 4, Dark Zero, TSM, Elevate, and LG, and then Optic, the best of the rest, putting 36 points on the board, but only just pipping those who are a little bit lower. So we know who's going to take the headlines, and there was a few teams who maybe didn't perform as well as we would have expected. Certainly teams who were looking pretty promising in games 1 and 2, but then dropped off a little bit. PLP, for example, weren't able to really get going. There was a lot of squads that had contests they had to try and work with, and that may not be the case when they go into another group. So it may just be that A and B is contest heavy for them, and they pick up their points when the other groups go at it.
And Mark, obviously, you know, this has been I think it's been a great start. It's been electric. Oxygen Esports, some of those teams that they just need to stay in the mix. They need to just make land. We know how good a few of these teams have already proven that when they get to the show, that they work well within the limelight. But overall, a pretty solid performance. The top players, we expected them to perform, and they did.
Yeah, I mean, I look at those overall standards, and there's a couple of things to talk about, right? There's the obvious TSM Dark Zero. That's going to be talked about for quite some time. Both teams, I think, will be very happy with that day number 1. But there's the Elevate story. Also, if you look what happened at the end of the day with the standings in comparison to how we were after 3 maps, a comeback from Optic on World's Edge. And I think FaZe, you know, they've contested on Geyser at the moment. They're having to take half the loot and make plays off the back of it, and they end up inside of the top 6, I think it was at the end of things there, which I think they're going to be very, very happy with as well, especially with a lot of the doubters who maybe look at that roster and think, is this team going to work in these lobbies? Well, the answer in week number 1 at least is yes. They've performed well enough, and I think if they can, like Dan said, get a little bit more control of a POI moving forward and claim something as their own, there is something to work with for them. And as the confidence grows, I think the IGL calls are going to be a little bit clearer. Everyone's going to be on the same page, and I think there's a lot of growth for this roster.
Oh, there's a ton of growth, and I have loved seeing these new teams, maybe some new faces show up, and that's why at the end of the day, we always have to bookend a broadcast with an MVP. Last time in EMEA, I brought out the glasses. You know, I'm not sure I'm going to do it this time around, but I will say that there is nothing to hide when it comes to the way this man played. There's no shade being thrown at Sykes. He, to me, is the MVP of today, and not only part of the winning team of Dark Zero. You talk about the journey that this man must have gone through over the course of his time in the last 4 months. A crazy offseason for us all. Not a lot of Apex Legends. There's really no way to figure out if, hey, where do I really stand amongst the best of the best? It's holidays, it's scrims, not a good litmus test. So question marks for sure. And of course, not being a part of the XSET. That was a team that he had built a lot of good bonds with. And you know, Nocturnal and Fun FPS, they're great guys. They felt like they had something going, but all of a sudden, you see Dark Zero and this pickup. Sykes joins this team, but not just joins it, he elevates it. That is why today he earned the MVP, not just from where he's gone, but what the future now looks like. If they can keep this pace up, this looks like maybe not just a great home, but the best home that we've seen for Sykes so far. 17 kills, 15 assists, 9,000 damage dealt over the course of the day. That is such an impressive stat right there. Dark Zero, very, very happy to have Sykes on their roster. He is our MVP for day 1 in the split. And Mark, I think rightly so.
Yeah, I have to agree with that pick. I've already talked about how the synergy is looking good, the chemistry is looking good, but I think Sykes played like he wasn't overwhelmed by the fact he's playing with Dark Zero, right? He looked like he'd played with those two players for 3 or 4 seasons. It just looked like a natural fit, and I'm really excited for him, man. I think he's a great player, and I think that he's only going to get better. I think he can learn a lot from Zero as well, how to play some of the more, shall we say, like pressurized situations. And I think the sky's the limit here for Dark Zero. They look deadly today.
I think, Dan, too, I talked about synergy. This is a question, I'll ultimately ask when we get a chance to speak with a member of Dark Zero coming up shortly. But there's something to say outside of the game too, and maybe the mesh that's just looking like you could see the results of what's happened here. They've got to be getting along well with each other, just in terms of a team outside of this.
Yeah, I think it's evident with how successful they've been today. They're all listening to each other. They're working in tandem. They're baiting and switching well. And I love that we see Sykes on the conduit as well. It was something you brought up during EMEA, Rain Day, is who do you put that conduit on? Do you go for a more support player who's going to be using those shields in a support way, or do you put it on your main fragger who can still shield at the same time to one of your teammates, but will ultimately shield themselves in those engagements? And something that Sykes did very well today, and sometimes was winning 1v1s because of it.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I think Sykes, let's even breaking that down to the sub point here, like I'm doing a presentation, I feel like he's that secondary fragger behind Jin Burton when it comes down to winning the crucial fight that will change the game. Jin, he's been in those moments. He can be the guy that kind of takes the limelight, and Sykes can do what you need to do and step up in those big times. So for him to be able to have another person to add that Q2, or for the moments he has to go away and make a big play, that is massive. I just want to double check. I heard, do we have the interview ready? I think we do. Oh, we got the leaderboard coming up. Okay, I thought something was happening. Here we go. So in terms of kills, look at this. Dark Zero, I mean, there's no surprise here over the course of it. Zero, Sykes, Jin Burton, top 3 in kills. Verholz, Imperial Hal, right behind him. To me, Mark, Zap and Chubi, I mean, this has been a really nice performance from these guys to kick off the day. Sweet and Funk making it out there. Bursty as well, joining that top 10. But, you know, very, very impressed with Elevate and the way that they perform.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking across the names that you're seeing here. A lot of these are the fraggers on the team, right? I mean, I want to give a shout out to Zero, though. You know, 21 kills. I mean, that is a list full of controller players there. Sweet at the bottom, kind of bookended things. But, I mean, Zero on M&K, 21 kills leading the way. I think it's very easy when you look at Dark Zero to focus on Jin Burton and focus on Sykes as the Slayers and Zero as the IGL who's making the calls. But let me tell you, man, Zero's a special kind of player. He isn't an IGL who's going to rely on making calls and then for his 2 teammates to execute on damage done and fight for positions. He'll lead the way. He will headbutt his way on M&K and do so much damage and clean up so many kills. He's so good at engaging and disengaging and doing damage, staying alive to re-engage in that fight if he needs to. And he's a special player, man. You know, he's one of only a small amount of players who's won an event on LAN, and you have to be a special player to do that.
And not even that, multiple times alongside his teammate Jin Burton, and being able to do it, it's a special thing, and not everyone gets a chance to specifically be in those moments. Dark Zero, no stranger to them though, and as we've talked about them now, we get a chance to talk with them. We are here with Jin Burton from Dark Zero. Jin, how's it going, man? It's great to see you. Congratulations on the win here in day 1.
Thank you so much. How you guys doing? Hi, everyone.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Yeah, we're good, man. We're good. We want to know how you're doing. I most importantly, though, want to start with, what's been going on with you guys, because we had a huge off season. Last time we saw you, despite a lot of people thinking it would happen, you didn't lift the trophy. And there was this kind of reset, right? What do we do? Where do we go? Do we keep the squad? Do we add someone new? Walk me through just kind of the stuff you guys talked about honestly with each other and how you got to hear from the offseason a few months ago.
So after championships, obviously we had like a 23rd finish. So we had like a pretty unlucky run for the trophy. And then after the championships, we decided with Zero that we're going to look for a new third. Honestly, I love Zainu to death. He's one of the best players in the game. And obviously, Phony has picked up Zainu. And I'm pretty sure they did pretty well today as well. But from that, we were looking for options. And we had limited options. We were looking for Guild, to be honest. Guild and Sykes were like the only 2 options that were available at the time. And we trialed both of them, and we chose Sykes. And honestly, today he played absolutely phenomenal. He was like the best pickup we could have ever done. He's just, all of us were just popping off. It was insane.
Absolutely love that for you guys. I mean, I was going to kind of comment on that, right? Because, Rain avoided the MVP today to Sykes, and there just seemed to be this natural chemistry when you put a team together. Sometimes it's something you have to work on, but the way you guys were kind of baiting and switching, you were going and do damage, and Sykes would always be there kind of as an anchor to move in as a secondary fragger to finish it off. And it was almost as if it was just a natural flow. It was almost you didn't have to communicate a lot of the times just with your natural movement. Is that something that you felt when you started playing with this player immediately?
First, to be honest, when we first picked up Sykes for a whole month, we were kind of struggling with. We were running Horizon at the time, not Conduit, and we were having chemistry issues. And then once we put Sykes on Conduit, and he's more of an anchor player, we were just rolling every single team in 3v3s. And today was literally the highlight of that. Like, we were baiting and switching. We're just on point. Like, all the boys were on point today. So yeah, we were just playing insane.
Yeah, I mean, you guys looked incredible. I mean, 90 points that you were able to put down. I mean, already that puts you as like LAN contenders with a points total like that. Where is the goal? What is the goal for this team? Is it getting back to first place? Do you see this roster being what propels you back onto that championship scene and back into a winning mentality?
Yes, this is the championship winning team. Easily. And we want to be the best in the world. We want to prove it again to everyone that we're the best in the world. I'm coming back for that trophy. Wow. See you, TSM. I see you.
I love that. It's week 1 and we're getting this kind of stuff from you, Jen. I love it.
It's on tape too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey man, I kind of led that a journey of 1,000 steps, and that being metaphorically the championship. It starts with day 1, and this could be the beginning. I mean, what we saw today, it certainly looks like the path is there. You guys just have to walk it. I want to just, before we leave you though, just really talk about Sykes himself, what he brings specifically. I know you guys are working well chemistry wise, but you know, is there something outside of just the gameplay? Do you guys get along well with each other? You know, is it personality? I just want to, you know, touch a little bit more on this new roster, because we know how you and Zero work together. We've already heard about that. I want to know what you and Zero are really saying about Sykes and what he's bringing to the table.
Okay, well, Sykes, he brings the vibes. I love the energy that Sykes provides to the team, and we need that energy. When all 3 of us link with the energy, like we just roll, like we're just fluid, you know, straight up. So like that's what Sykes brings to the team, and I really like that. And he's very vocal too. He likes to talk.
Yeah, I mean, he brought 17 kills as well today, and I think 9,000 damage. But the vibes were high. Jen, I want to not keep you too long, man. Just you know, you've got obviously so many fans around the world, and you know, shout out to Mama and Papa Jen Burton over there, and you know, all the family who's watching. But any shout out to the fam and your fans for
shout out to all the fans, all the DZ fans. We love you all, and also big shout out to Zero today. He absolutely got to IGL. And big shout out to Sykes, the GOAT.
All right, Jen, take it easy, man. Thanks so much for talking with us today, and congrats on the win.
All right, see you guys. Bye, everyone.
Hey, man, you know, vibes, clearly.
That's a man who just won a week of Pro League right there. He is full of beans, isn't he? That is amazing to see. And, you know, the positivity you had to say about what Sykes has brought his 2 teammates. I love that, right? And there just seemed to be something, I don't know if it's just me, but there seemed to be something about the look in Jen's eye, right? There was like this, okay, that was great, and we feel unstoppable. Like, it was an amazing interview. Love it.
It's kind of that look, you know, and Dan kind of closing out the day as well. Like, it's kind of that look that, like, belief is back, you know, because I felt like there was a moment they lost the belief, and there was a road to get here to say, you know, can we do this again? I feel like they believe it now. For sure.
Yeah, and like usually asking a team, you know, what are your goals is a bad question, but I just felt that he wanted to give a little shout out and like explain how good they were and call out TSM a little bit. Like, they are back to challenge. Yes, they were poor performers at the championships, but it does seem like that confidence has been injected right back into them with the addition of Sykes, and I can't wait to see what happens. Don't want to get ahead of themselves, of course. It is just week 1, but what an incredible match 1 it was for them. I think they were unbelievable today, and I'm excited to see what happens next.
And yeah, for those who had DZ in their power rankings at 1 or 2, they either are staying there or going up, because that is certainly a performance the entire globe in Apex Legends is going to be talking about. Onset, Gaskin, great job today, fellas. We'll see you very, very soon, but enjoy the rest of your week, and congrats on a great day 1.
You too, buddy.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to it, because you know what? We started, but we are not even close to being done. Next Saturday, it continues with match day 2. We'll have the rest of our squad coming in and doing their hosting. We'll have newer faces you haven't seen being a part of this broadcast for a minute, and also some familiar faces you know and love. Cannot wait to watch with you all and check out the debuts of some of these teams in EMEA. Aurora, Fire, Beavers have no longer been a part of this. They're taking on Hardeki with 9 Impulse and the squad to be able to make some statements here in EMEA. Let's see if they do it right. DSG, formerly the Dojo, after 4th place, and maybe a dream. They have certainly cemented that dream into reality as a part of Disguised. Let's see how they can perform in their C debut. And again, another big name taking on the amazing Gildersons with plays like this coming out from Waltzy and the crew. You will see all of the action unfolding next Saturday. Some big names coming out to play in the ALGS. We still have so much more to unfold. If you want to follow us and maybe you aren't keeping track of the time, you can go ahead and follow on Play Apex Esports on X, Play Apex Esports on YouTube, and on Twitch at Play Apex. Ladies and gentlemen, what a day. What a start. Year 4. It is only just beginning. And like we said, with those journeys that are so far away, the only thing we can do is keep taking a step at a time. But I can promise you this, today is not the greatest day you will see. There is more, bigger and better, and more excitement to unfold here in the ALGS. So we hope you stay with us and enjoy the ride as we all will. My name's been Rain Day. It's been Onset and Gaskin on the cast, all of our production and crew, everyone from EA and the Apex team. We appreciate you watching, and you, the community, you're the best in the business. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you next week. And as always, never give up, never stop gaming. See you next time.
We are live